take me over from the toenails to the crown. On the army of my men, they put me in the ground, and I return to the chorus of the universal sound. Oh my goodness, what a day to be alive. Welcome to the Normal America Show, your host Rob Norm. Woo, it's been a great one. I'm having a great day today. My goodness, it's great to be alive. I did it, man. I went through, what was it? So the past 16 days, I've worked 14 of them. I've only got to see my son 4 hours in the past 2 weeks. Finally, I got to spend a day with the man. Valentine's Day with him and my wife. My goodness. What a day. Just growing up here in rural Pennsylvania, I was always a big fan of baseball. Even though I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so I like hockey. I think that to watch a game live, nothing beats a hockey game. I love going to a hockey game live. Football's fine. It's exciting, but you don't realize how boring it is unless you're watching on television with replay and stuff. There's so much downtime. But baseball season's my favorite. And here in rural Pennsylvania, there's one thing that I really love about baseball season. So when it's starting up in early April, two things are going on. One, as a Pirates fan, it's the only time of the year that I could have optimism about my team because they will inevitably suck within a month. And so it's opening day, baby. The beginning of baseball, MLB, I always loved. But the other thing is, it also symbolizes that I don't live in an Arctic tundra, which is nice. Today, my crappy front-wheel drive Dodge Journey, I have a shared driveway with my neighbor, and then there's a pull-in, a little side-off driveway that pulls in towards my garage, and it's maybe sloped, I don't even know, 10 degrees. And, of course, I pulled in forwards, and so this morning when we tried to leave, front-wheel drive, a little bit of ice. Ugh. So, man, I can't wait for it to be nicer out. But you can see it's on the horizon. Things are melting, and then they're getting freezing again, so you got a lot of ice everywhere here now. Not so much snow. But I don't know. It was just a great day for me. I had a great day. I'm looking forward to come up here streaming tonight. I'm talking to my audience, getting to do what I love, streaming. Got to hang out with my man. The only thing that's sort of a bummer is as he's getting older, he's 4 years old now, he's starting to understand when I have to go to work. Or I call it going to work when I come up here too. And so I was coming upstairs and he said, "Dad, you're my number one best friend," which is also a reason to feel good. So, you like to go up with America? I don't know if I'll do call-ins or not. I'd like to argue with people. I don't like calling people that agree with me. I don't want to talk to righties that want to talk about the 19th Amendment, some shit. We're talking about Trump, corruption. We're talking about it all today, baby. We're talking about the lefties and MySpace, and oh my goodness. Did you guys know that Trump's corrupt? What? Yeah, can you believe it? Everybody's saying it. Must be true. They're like, Trump's a Russian asset. Oh, no, wait, shit. That's what they were saying in 2016. Mishandles classified document. Oh, wait. He needs to be impeached for the phone call. Oh, wait, that was what they said before. He needs to be impeached because January 6th, because he said fight like hell. Oh, wait, that's what they were saying before. Oh, now they're back to saying he's a Russian asset because of the Ukraine stuff. Oh, but also he's corrupt. His DOJ is corrupt. Oh, Eric Adams, what about that? Oh, Doge, it's all corrupt. Everything's corrupt all the time, and he's always the worst. He's always evil, and everything's corrupt, and you have to be outraged this time especially. We're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to talk about some of my favorite people, and that's the faux concern trollers. I used to like you. I thought you were one of the good ones. I did. Rob, I've watched you dozens of times, and I thought, here's a nice guy. He's reasonable. He's not just a team player. He's willing to call it his side. But now, because you don't think that Donald Trump's the most corrupt person ever, I'm just very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. I don't give a shit what you think. I don't care. Fuck you. How's that? So we'll talk about the corruption. It's going to shock you, the level of this corruption. Thanks so much, John Rock. Everyone like and share the stream. Couldn't agree more. So we're here, baby. We'll talk a little about some of the characters I interact with in the left-wing space. We'll talk about some of Trump's corruption and responses to that, if there are any. Maybe it's just that he's super corrupt and there's nothing we can do. Crazy. Talk a little Ukraine, little Mayor Adams. And good stuff. Good stuff. Also, I saw Mike Benz on Joe Rogan. Must watch again. Is the Trump administration corrupt? Why does it matter? Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for coming a member. We'll take your monies. We'll take your monies here. Money, capitalism, U.S. aid, Russia, shekels, whatever. Good stuff. Saw my friend, what's up, Nash Trucker? Saw my friend Andrew Wilson was on Piers Morgan today debating Destiny. I didn't watch it, but good for him. Nice for him to be getting bigger appearances on a regular basis. I like that. I do. I've been good. So, it's nice to see him getting his face out there. He deserves it. He's a good guy. Of course, he never beats me in a debate, but what can you do? I know I've missed you all, too. It's crazy. I explained sort of. I did a stream Tuesday night, just YouTube only. So, if you're on Twitch, I apologize for that, but my work, I keep getting called into work because I do home health care. Like, if your coworker is not coming in, you can't just leave. You can't look at the person with disabilities and be like, hey, man, I'm out. You're on your own. So you got to stay until someone comes in. So that's sort of what happened. Kamala, 2028. I saw you asked if you should run again in 2028. Absolutely. It does seem like he was helped by Turkey to win his mayorship. No. Oh, my goodness. Well, that's that. That, what can you do? That's all there is to it, right? So, when we're stalling here. We're at 10 minutes. We jump in. I always try to stall for 10 minutes, then we jump into the issues in hand. So, let's talk about it. So, the central theme of tonight's show is Trump's corruption. Paid for by Russia? Eric Adams? Let's start with Ukraine. Let's start with that. I see a lot of people, Dylan Burns, for example, people that are heavily invested in the Ukraine situation, and they're furious at sort of Trump's commentary on his phone call that he had with Vladimir Putin, right? They're furious with it. He's just giving Putin everything he wants. Trump's team has no idea what their goal is. They haven't thought anything through. What was the past 4 years? What was that about? What was the end game there? Can anybody explain it to me? What was the plan here? Because every time I said, well, eventually it's going to be the United States has to physically have personnel involved in the war against Russia, or what? What was the plan here? Because I saw even mainstream media articles were saying, like, a lot of insiders are saying they don't see an end to the conflict. Intech Q-Tips says, Utah state law is now prohibiting pride flags in school, but allows Nazi and Confederate flags in school. No! Oh my God! Fuck you! We don't care what you think. Fuck you! People that wanted to indoctrinate your kid to castrate themselves and think that they were evil because they were white or because they were heterosexual are now upset that people got pissed and are pushing back against it. Fuck you! You fucking child mutilators! That's not fair! We wanted our child mutilation flags there! You fucking sad sacks of shit! Oh, I'm sorry, I feel bad. By the way, it's going to be a show with a lot of swearing and a lot of antagonism to a lot of members of this chat. Yeah, we don't want your bullshit trans flags there. If you're real pissed off about Confederate flags, take it to court, baby. And if you lose, you lose. We have to trust the courts, right? Always going to trust the courts. No matter what, you got to trust the courts. We can't attack the judiciary, right? What did the Nazis do again? What did they do? Man, they killed. They sound like real fucking terrible people. How much influence do they have in our government right now, in our culture? Oh, that's right, none. What about the child mutilating trans fucking cult? Oh, they're all through our schools? How many teachers do we have proudly declaring that they're Nazis? I'm for firing each one of them. Cool. Now you for firing all the ones that are proudly claiming they're transgender? Cool? Yeah, go fuck yourself. You know what? I also don't hear them complaining about Coney 2012. How about that? You know, they're not saying anything about people that are wearing Pol Pot shirts either. Oh my God. Slow down, not okay. I don't believe you, one. I don't believe what you're saying. I don't believe that the courts ruled that said that Nazi flag is perfectly acceptable, but the transgender. I bet if I look into that case, you're misreading it or you're just blatantly full of shit. The far bigger threat at this point is the transgender cult because it is so prolific within our schools. So it is a far bigger threat. If we had avowed Nazi teachers running around all the time, proudly displaying Nazi flags for their classrooms, I would say absolutely that's something that needs to be dealt with, that we need to look into. That isn't the case right now. My guess is probably what it said was it dealt specifically with the fact that there were teachers flying trans flags and things like that. And then one of the argument that the shit people like you that are pretending to not be cool with the trans shit, but you're full of shit. You're a fucking bullshitter. You're an equivocator. You're making defenses for the people that want that shit in our classrooms. That's why you bring up this, but they allow Nazi flags. Probably made some argument that said, but this kid had a band that had a Nazi symbol on his shirt, and that was allowed. Why was he allowed to have that? And they probably said something to the effect of, well, it's different when it is a student displaying something versus when it is the teacher displaying this shit, indoctrinating it into their children. That's my guess. I'll bet you're misrepresenting the case. Just saying. I have no love for Nazis. Fuck them. The people that run around screaming Jew, 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 I think they're fucking sad and pathetic. And link me the article. Here we go. Let's start off good. Ask chat, get Rob? I don't get your shitty joke, Javon. Nazi flags can fly in Utah schools, but not pride flags, GOP lawmakers say. New bill would allow for Nazi and Confederate flags. Confederate flags should be allowed to be displayed in some instances in Utah schools and government buildings, but pride flags be banned. Note to readers, it was amended hours after the story was published. Oh boy! Looks like you were wrong. They already amended. An ongoing fight in Utah to ban pride flags in schools has entered new territory Thursday after Representative Trevor Lee proposed new legislation. So it didn't pass. It was proposed legislation. Lie number one by in-text QPs. Yes, I could also get outraged on any proposed legislation that one person proposed in any state level. I could. But apparently that's the big issue, that this trans defender into... What's your name again? Let's make sure we get the trans defender's name right. Into Q-tips. He's into Q-tips, all right. Notice how, so the big story here, the big breaking story that this dude had to come in. He doesn't support the trans agenda, but the big story he had to bring in. They're allowing this in Utah. They're allowing it. My God, they're allowing it. Because one state level representative proposed this. Hasn't passed or anything like that. Okay, let's go on. Proposed legislation to ban flags not just in public schools, but government buildings or government properties. The bill originally applied only to schools, but an update of the bill released ahead of Thursday's House Education hearing expands the bill to all government buildings or properties. The updated bill favor recommended by the committee, with the committee's two Democrats, Hayes and Moss, casting the only nays. It will now be heard on the full House floor. Approved flags for displaying government buildings and school would include the Utah state and U.S. flags, military flags, and flags for other countries, flags for Native American tribes, and official flags for colleges and universities. The bill still allows for the flying of a historic version of a flag that is temporarily displayed for educational purpose, which include the... Oh, so you could, if you're talking about Nazis being evil and fighting them for historical education purposes, you could show that flag or the Confederate flag? Cool. We're starting to see increasingly more hostile type interactions between different political factions we have within our side. It's no different than starting to see within our education system. Our schools should be a place for children to learn, not feel like they're pushed or seen at agendas. Into Q-Tips would disagree with that. He wants those trans flags there. Real bad, man. It gives him a nice chubby. He's into that just like he's into Q-Tips. When the first introduced bill, Lee said in social media platform his goal was to ban pride flags. Sweet. But Nazi and Confederate flags, he told the committee Thursday, would be included in the approved flags. There are instances where in classroom you have a curriculum that is needed to use flags such as World War II, the Civil War. You may have a Nazi flag, you may have a Confederate flag. You're allowed to display it as part of the curriculum, and that's okay. Yeah, totally agree. If you're talking about the historical context of World War II, the Civil War, yes, I can understand why you would show those flags. In a phone call Thursday night, Lee disputed he ever said a Nazi flag could be displayed and argued it would not be allowed under his bill. There's a difference between displaying flags in curriculum when you're teaching on them, he said. You don't censor history here. That's not what we're doing. Yep, sounds good. The bill drew significant attention during committee hearing with dozens of people appearing in both person and online, speaking for and against the legislation. The ban's unconstitutional and serves as only a means of control over people, said Millie Dworkin. You all argue semantics, but you know this is wrong and immoral. Queer people commit suicide at a higher rate than everyone else. Allow us to indoctrinate your kid. They're not real people unless they chop off their dick, said that guy. Aaron Bolin testified in favor of the legislation, said his 10-year-old son's been offended after a pride flag was hung in the school in the computer lab. We all know that if a teacher hung up a flag with a giant picture of Jesus on it, it'd be removed immediately. Yep. Yet the pride flag sends a clear message about marriage. It also sends a message about gender, that a boy can become a girl and can become a girl. Will become a boy. The message conflicts with my family's religious beliefs. Yep. The push to ban pride flags is a dramatic attempt during the legislative session last year when McKay from Riverton attempted to push through a bill that would have listed approved flags in the final enters of the session. It failed on a 9-20 vote. Asked about the new bill in the Senate availability ahead of the committee hearing, several members groaned and laughed. Flag bill again? It may have legs over here. I don't know. My caucus will remain opposed, said the Dems. Here's the updated version of the bill. The amended version. The amended bill would now allow flags part of a public school district or charter school approved educational to be displayed in classroom. It was amended to allow flags part of a public school district or charter school's approved educational curriculum. It says a historic version of the flag is in accordance with the curriculum local education authority governing board approves. The bill defines flags as a usually rectangular piece of fabric placed prominent location on government property where the flag is easily visible. Sanctioned flags include the Utah and U.S. flags, as well as military flags, flags for other countries. In an interview, he denied that he ever said there could be a Nazi flag. The difference is between displaying flags and curriculum when you're teaching on them. You don't censor history. We already read that. Redact your ridiculous headline, he said, and apologize for sowing divide and spreading hate to the general public. There you go. There's the big story, everyone. A bill that hasn't even been voted on yet. The Benz trans flag says if you're teaching about Nazis, it's okay to show a Nazi flag, to have a Nazi flag. If you're teaching about the Confederates, it's okay. That's different than pridefully flying a pride flag. But the guy you had spreading the misinformation about that, trust him, he's not for the trans agenda. Ooh, boy. Woo. We're starting off strong. Good stuff. I could see, though, why shipbird lefties would want things like that banned. For example, they don't want you talking about the origins of the KKK, right? They don't want that. You know, the Democrat KKK. They don't want that shit, right? Can't talk about that. Who is it that's censoring history again? Pride isn't just trans. That's what it's been used to indoctrinate. We gave goodwill. I, for one, for example, support gay marriage. I have no problem with gay people whatsoever. Pride has been used to indoctrinate people, including children, into excesses so grotesque that it should be fully rejected when it comes to displaying them in our schools. I'm glad you're not a KKK Democrat. I've had this argument about flags before. My favorite place to go on vacation here in Pennsylvania is Gettysburg. I call it Gettysburg. My shithead friend that's from there calls it Gettysburg. We have a long running argument about this. I forget, I was debating someone and they said, anyone who ever flies a Confederate flag is a racist. I was like, what about the town of Gettysburg? Like their entire economy, well, not their entire, huge portion of their economy is tourism to tour sort of the battle. It's awesome. It's one of the coolest. It is. I've taken guided tours there. It's respectful of the North and the South. It is by no means pushing a slavery agenda. It's people that understand the historical context of the sacrifice that so many people on all sides of that battle met. It means a lot to them to keep that memory alive. So, yeah, everyone should go there. It really is. It's I think it's an amazing experience, especially if you find the right guide. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Ryan Lopez says, answer the prompt, yes? Oh, so to answer the prompt. My mistake, Ryan. I'm biting everyone's head off today. I'm so sorry. Yes, the Trump administration is corrupt. Personally, I doubt many places are going to fly a flag of a Nazi while they're teaching it. I will admit that I have seen Confederate flags in my high school while we were teaching the Civil War. And not only that, I saw a person in full Confederate uniform. The brother of one of my students in my grade was a Civil War reenactor who happened to usually reenact the South. And he dressed up in full Southern garb with the flag, the Confederate flag, in fact, several Confederate flags, and he brought his friend who dressed in full Union garb and brought several flags from the Union at the time. And then we watched the movie Gettysburg, and the dude was like a nerd in a good way and would like pause the movie all the time with the inaccuracies. Like, I'll never forget, he's like, now watch, pause right here. And the one like commander or whatever, charge! And he's like, now pause. He's like, notice his tan line has a wristwatch. You could tell that this guy was wearing a wristwatch, but actually the wristwatch wasn't invented until years later. It's like shit like that. It was pretty funny. So I would think in that context, I have no problem with the Confederate flag being there. If it was proudly displayed every day like the trans flag, then maybe that's different. The same with a Nazi flag. If a speaker wants to come in and do a speech and he's like, I fucking killed these Nazis, and where my father killed the Nazis on fucking D-Day, and here's some of the shit that they got. Here's a Nazi uniform, here's a Nazi flag. I don't have a problem with that. It's clearly, I don't think that that's the norm, though. You wore a wristwatch? That's a coup. Yeah, that Civil War dude was cool as shit. I was in 8th grade when that dude came in. If that dude, like, I would listen to that guy for fucking hours now. I don't have that girl's information anymore, but I should reach out to her and be like, hey, is your brother still doing Civil War stuff? I'd like to bring him on my show and just bullshit for like 4 hours. Yes, I would be absolutely fine in a historical context if they want to say, in the years of 2023, a bunch of fucked up lefties that wanted to indoctrinate children used this flag as part of that. I would have no problem with that. Yeah, none at all. None. Into Q-Tips, who spreads trans propaganda. He's spreading the same bullshit propaganda to help the trans community to be allowed to continue to indoctrinate our children. Really wants you to know that he doesn't care about the trans community. He just likes parroting propaganda to ensure that they be allowed to continue to indoctrinate our children in state schools. Go ahead, Into Q-Tips. Go ahead and explain to us. Go ahead. You don't care about him. I don't care about him. I'm just really worried about Nazis. Can you show me one example of teachers flying Nazi flag? Just one. Can you show me one? Go ahead. Go to TikTok, wherever you need to go. Find me the examples of teachers proudly displaying Nazi flags that you're real worried about. Because you're not just spreading bullshit propaganda, right? I mean, you said that was the law in Utah. It's not. It hasn't even been voted on. Well, I'll accept your apology into Q-tips. Maybe you won't be so quick to jump into bullshit to justify the spreading of fucking garbage propaganda next time. You'll say, does it make sense that some legislative body went on record saying we want Nazi flags in the classroom, just not trans flag? You think for a second, there wasn't a moment that you paused and was like, well, wait a minute, why would that be the case? What are they trying to say here? Anyways, let's talk about Ukraine. What was the plan with Ukraine? What was it? Now, I hate to spoil it, but when I talked to Dylan Burns and every other person that wanted to scream about Ukraine, I spoiled the ending. Years ago, I spoiled the ending. You ready? You ready for I'll spoil it for you again. Ready? In the end, Ukraine's going to have to give concessions. And the longer it goes on, the more dead bodies that'll pile up on both sides. But that's how it'll end. And then, if you fast forward past that, the United States doesn't matter if it's Republican, Democrat, all that's irrelevant. Eventually, the same people that were putting Ukrainian flags in their fucking avatars and lecturing you about they're going to move on to another cause. Ukraine won't be useful to them anymore, and they won't give a shit that a generation of Ukrainian men have been lost. They'll have moved on. That's how it ends. That's it. You understand that, right? So the people that are like, well, Zelensky came out and said maybe we'll give up some land in peace negotiations. And Trump saying, look, we've talked to Russia. We're trying to figure out what it'll take, to have peaceful negotiations. It's all siding with Russia. No shit. Because Russia's more powerful than Ukraine. Yep. The side with more strength turns out better in the negotiation. That's one side. What's the other side? What's the other side, Dave Timmerman? So let Russia do whatever they want. Do we let Yemen do whatever they want? Or, I'm sorry, do we let Saudi Arabia do whatever they want? Are you willing to... No one's stopping you right now. I don't understand this, Vaughn, Dave Timmerman. I don't understand this. It's so important to stop Russia. Ukraine is happily accepting foreign conscripts. Go ahead, head over. Nothing's stopping you. Have at. I don't want my money going there. I also don't want my soldiers going there. Sorry. Yep, bad shit happens. You can throw a dartboard at a country and find situations of that country being aggressive. We going into every one of those countries? Not even close. Russia's by no means our strongest adversary. That would be China. Maybe the United States shouldn't have been involved in a color revolution in 2014. Maybe it shouldn't have been involved in basically controlling the legal system of Ukraine. Maybe. Maybe it shouldn't have had biolabs within 100 miles or so of Russia. How would we feel if Russia partnered with Mexico to have Russian biolabs 100 miles off the coast of the United States? How would you react? That's right. Q-tips, now you've redeemed yourself. Absolutely true. We have enough problems around here. The truth is, the people in the United States in leadership positions in the Biden administration and elsewhere that were helping Ukraine don't give a fuck about the people of Ukraine. They were happy to use those people as cannon fodder. People like me did give a shit. Not that I cared because they're Ukrainian. I cared because they're human beings, and I don't want to see a war where the casualties on all sides are going to mount this way. If it was up to me, Ukraine would have surprised Russia, kicked their ass in day one. I would have been perfectly happy with that. But that's not reality. No, it's not that I'm pro-Russian conquest. I'm pro-realist. If you're anti-Russian conquest, Joe Vaughn, yes or no? Are you sending troops to Ukraine? That's right, Sarah G. I'm here for you. Happy Valentine's. I didn't even say Happy Valentine's Day yet. You get to stare at my ugly ass ranting and raving. Hey, Jay Vaughn, you sending troops? You sending troops to fight Russia? How far are you willing to go with this? Well, I personally don't want me or my family or anyone I know as a troop sent over there, but what we should do is ensure that we fund Ukraine until every last Ukrainian male is dead. That's how we fight back. What a noble sacrifice you're willing to make. That's amazing. There's no amount of dead Ukrainians that are too much to virtue signal for the Marussia crowd. Did you criticize such groups such as the Democratic Party that said that the bullshit Russia hacked the DNC server story was an act of war by Russia? Did you try to de-escalate the situation there? When I was talking to people like Dylan Burns involving the Syria conflict in 2020, and I said, what the fuck's the United States doing here in Syria again? We're arming Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS to fight, or supposedly to fight ISIS, but we're also fighting Assad, and we have to stay there because our NATO country, Turkey, that we station nuclear weapons in, will commit genocide against our ally, the Kurds, if we leave? If it's really about fighting ISIS, then why are we fighting Assad? Why don't I join the American military? Because I don't want to. I'm not someone saying that our military should be fighting in the soil of places like Ukraine. You seem to think so. How am I a hypocrite for saying, yeah, I don't think we should be involved in any of these countries? Then why don't you join the military? Excuse me? I'm not even telling you to join the military. One, you're unable to answer the question. If you're saying that we have to stop, if you want this war to end, then you're pro-Russia conquest. Okay, then you're suggesting we should send the United States. What happened? How much money do we have to send to stop Russia? What if the money's not enough? Do we send troops? What if that's not enough? Do we send nukes? What's your recommendation here? Notice there's never an answer. They can't give a fucking answer. It's just all virtue signaling. That's all it is. This is the same fucking crew of people that said, you want grandma to die? When you said you'd be against lockdowns. You want grandma to die? And they think they're making some great point. You're not saying shit. You're not saying anything. These are the same people that would have been saying during the Iraq War, oh, so you're pro-Saddam. You're against the invasion. You're pro-Saddam. Saddam's a bad guy. Fuck Putin. Fuck Russia. I hope Ukraine somehow surprises everyone and wins today, and Russia leaves with their tail between their legs. That's not reality. So then what are you willing to do? If you think that Trump's saying, listen, Ukraine, you're going to have to be fucking reasonable. We're trying to end this war. We're trying to get guarantees that Russia backs off some, but we're going to have to give them some concessions because they're coming at the negotiations from a position of strength. If that's considered the pro-Russia conquest position, then what's the anti-Russia conquest position? Lord of the Nerds, thanks for the $2, man, says, I bet Rob could debate Putin into surrendering. I'd try. He's fighting Ghost, yet you haven't answered a fucking question. You want to call in, Jay Vaughn? Yes or no? Would you send troops to stop Russia? Simple question. How have you not responded? That's easy. You're the big man saying that any solution that gives Russia any land, of course Ukraine needs something. Of course. Yep. Such as the war ending. That would be a good thing for Ukraine. There'd probably be other guarantees that they're looking for, like non-aggression. Further. He can't answer the question. I call it soccer, but I'm shit. Depends. Currently, no. So Javon says, I'm not taking a stance really. It depends. Okay, let's say that Ukraine, the war continues for another year, another 400,000 Ukrainian men die. Now they don't have men to fight. War's still going on because we don't want to be pro-Russia conquest. We send in troops now, Javon, since you're incapable of answering the question in an honest way. What's the line in the sand? I just gave you the scenario. If they don't have men, it's over. That's where we're getting. Notice he still couldn't answer the question. So if they don't have men and it's over, does that mean A, the United States should stand back and leave Russia completely, wipe out Ukraine and take it all over? Or B, try to negotiate a settlement before we get to that position that ensures Ukraine at least keeps some of their territorial control? Does that mean I'm pro-Russia if I want the latter position? That's right, Doodle. That's what's going on. The people that feel warm and cozy at night because they put their little Ukraine flag in their fucking Facebook profile, they don't give a fuck how many Ukrainians die. More, they say. More! My CIA says that I need to cheer this on. That's right, James DeMoss, exactly the correct point. If Ukraine was literally advancing into Russia, completely pushed Russia out of Ukraine, and they're advancing into Russia, and then Russia says, whoa, let's have a peaceful negotiation. Now Ukraine's coming from a position of strength. What's the negotiation? They get everything they want. What does Russia want? Tell us, Javon. What does Russia want? So Javon's upset because the negotiation being suggested is Russia gets everything they want. Okay, so Javon's going to tell us what Russia wants. Everything Russia wants. They don't care. None of them give a shit. It's all just, again, it's the same fucking people. And it's so funny to watch so many people on the left now do this. So many people. Because I actually, being like a Ron Paul libertarian-esque person back in 2004, 2005, I used to go march with my left-wing friends against the Iraq War. I fucking hated the Iraq War. Thought it was shit. And now so many of my left-wing friends that were with me there are completely on the opposite side here. They're like, yay, keep the war going, no matter what. We trust our intel community hook, line, and sinker no matter what. Wow, how'd you change, Rob? Lord of the Nerds, thanks for $5, says, Ukraine has been conscripting men to fight in a war they allegedly want to fight. So many pro-slavery libs. Not to mention Ukraine locked up an American citizen named Gonzalo Lira, who was just trying to leave the country for the crime of criticizing the government of Ukraine to where he died in prison. Fuck them. They shouldn't have got another dollar until they made amends for that. And if I was advising Trump, I'd tell them Zelensky would be on TV fucking groveling tomorrow to the family of Gonzalo Lira. At a minimum. That's our people. By the way, hats off to Trump for continuing to bring. He brought this gentleman back from Russia. Brought an American that was Bangladesh, I think. That is what our government should be doing, bringing Americans back. That's the only excuse for any involvement in Gaza whatsoever. I would significantly, I would, from the bottom of my heart, want that war to end. My preference would be that Russia would give up all the land that they took and enter into some sort of binding agreement that would ensure they would never be able to invade again. That's what I want. And hell, if that led domestically in Russia to Putin being removed, voted out, and someone put in that's more amicable to not doing things like invasions, sweet. And hell, maybe they'll agree to reduce their military spending 50% like Trump recommended. That would be great. But that's not what's going to happen. That's not realistic. Me acknowledging the reality of the situation and saying, I fucking told you we're in the same... Ukraine was in a greater position of strength 2 years ago than they are now. And yet you had assholes like Boris Johnson telling them, don't negotiate, don't negotiate. And I said, you are aware that eventually the way this ends is Ukraine negotiating from a strength of weakness, and the longer it goes on, the more of their people will be dead. And that's exactly where we're at. And all the people that are more moral than me and have their Ukrainian lapels and fucking symbols on Twitter and Facebook, they're saying, no, more Ukrainians must die. It's evil to want this war to end. Sarah G, thanks so much for the super chat. $5 says, liberals have such an intense support for war, the IRS, corruption, and censorship. Yeah. Yep. Everyone with half a brain knew this was going to... I said it over and over. Their arguments didn't even make sense. You'd say, well, wait a minute. If we're sending all these weapons and money to Ukraine, what if Russia just overwhelms them and then takes this weapons and money and we just financed Russia? That'd never happen. Russia doesn't have a fucking prayer. They can't do shit. They got embarrassed by the Ukrainian military. They're supposed to be this great bear, the Russian bear. They got embarrassed. They're embarrassed by the Ukrainian military. They can't do shit. Maybe if we completely had the Ukrainian army collapse, they could get to Moldova. But trust us, you don't have to worry about sending that money. I even had someone say this. It's already over. Russia's already lost. Dylan Burton said that at one point. It's already over. Russia's already lost. Okay, sweet. Then I guess we don't have to send any more weapons, right? No, please. Please. Send the weapons. If we don't send the weapons, next week Poland will be speaking Russian. Russia will wipe through the NATO countries. It'll wipe through, please, please. More money, more billions, please. But you just said Russia's already lost. They got embarrassed. Yeah, they're embarrassed. Fuck, they're weak. They're a bunch of pussies, Russia. You see? The contradiction? Yes, okay, I will address Eric Adams, yes. When does it end? When's the plan for how the conflict ends? We don't know. You can't negotiate with Putin. He's a crazy fucking insane madman, so we got to fight it till the end and ensure we have to help send missiles to bomb Russia. Yeah, but if Putin's this insane fucking madman who's willing to sacrifice his whole country for his own ego, doesn't that mean at some point he might use nuclear weapons? No, he's a very sane guy. He wouldn't do that. But you just said he's a fucking crazy madman. Like the Brianna Wu impression. Sanctioning their political rivals, not so much. I've followed the Gonzalo Lira shit. I've followed the Azov Battalion shit. I've followed the Tornado Battalion shit, where Zelensky and the Ukrainians released from jail a child predator that led a brigade because they would think that that would help fight. They going after some of the Eastern Orthodox Church in Ukraine. I followed a lot of the shit in Ukraine involving Burisma, the 2014 revolution. Maybe we'll watch some of it tonight. We'll see how long we stream. But Mike Benz again on Joe Rogan's show. It is amazing what our foreign policy does to these countries and how down to a science they have it. Spreading propaganda, buying the judiciary, helping spread money to the culture, to influence, to lead to these color revolutions, to ensure that we get a government that's sycophantic to the United States. Why would Russia be down with that, with their neighbor, Ukraine? Hey, Taylor M., do Christians that die in Ukraine go to heaven? Yes or no? Just curious. You want to talk about Eric Adams? This Trump administration's corrupt. They're clearly a Russian stooge at this point. You said that the reason that it was okay for Zelensky, at least you implied, the reason it was okay for Zelensky to go after the Eastern Orthodox Church was that the leader of the Eastern Orthodox Church said that Russians that die fighting in Ukraine go to heaven. So I just asked you, do they go to heaven? That's my question to you. Are you saying that's a lie? Is that what you're saying? So just to be clear, any church leader in the United States that says anything similar is invading a country a cardinal sin. I don't know. Let's say it is. Okay, so every American Christian that fought in Iraq goes to hell? Is that your argument, Dave Timmerman? Is that your argument? So Dave Timmerman wants you to know, if you have any family that fought in the Iraq war, Dave Timmerman wants you to know they're burning in hell if they died over there. Right, Dave? That's your argument. Right? Correct? How about Vietnam? Any Christian that died in Vietnam from the United States? Can you show me where God says that? Rob, what's martyrdom? Without looking up a definition, I would say dying for your religious beliefs, or dying to inspire for your religious beliefs. Okay? I noticed you didn't answer my question, Taylor. Notice how I answered yours quite quickly. I don't know if it's a cardinal sin or not. No, I would say that a just God and the Christian God and the one true God would not condemn people to hell because they fought in a conflict that their government sent them to. In almost no case would I think that would be the case. In fact, to get into heaven, it's quite express that you need to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It doesn't say anything about being forced to fight in a conflict. Black Jane, thank you so much for becoming a member for the third month. I'm so proud of this current administration. Me too, so far. I don't debate my clients. Eric Adams, is the Trump administration corrupt? Who says yes? Who says yes? Trump administration corrupt. Eric Adams corrupt. Oh my goodness. Oh, I thought someone I got a DM. I thought it was a DM. That was pretty pointed, but then I see it's not. You think, what's wrong with telling my neighbor if they go kill their other neighbor that they'll go kill my other neighbor, they'll go to heaven? Nothing's wrong with that. If the government of that neighbor was forcing them to go fight the other neighbor and they were worried about it and said, you'll still go to heaven if you accept the blood of Christ, nothing would be wrong with that? I don't give a fuck about the Eric Adams story at all. I don't care at all. Someone who's good faith that could point to me showing how outraged they were for the past 8 years of the lawfare and corruption could bring a case to me why they think that it's particularly heinous what's occurring now with the fact that the DOJ is dropping charges against Eric Adams. If they didn't, and they supported the Alvin Bragg case, the Letitia James case, they supported the Fannie Willis case, they supported the FBI investigation into Russia collusion, they supported the FBI's handling of the investigation into Biden's, they supported the mid-year exam investigation into Hillary's team, they supported the FBI and the special prosecutor not recommending charges against Joe Biden for his mishandling of classified information. If they supported the disparate treatment that the January 6 people got versus the Black Lives Matter Antifa people got for their riots and stuff. If they can't point to me saying that, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care. I do not care that people that were like, the corruption's on our side, so it's cool, we're going to pretend we don't see it, are now like, oh my God, corruption on the other side. I don't care. I don't care at all. Let's talk specifics. Pisco, lawyer. I debated about this corruption all the time. Every single case against Trump. Yep, totally legit. He even thought the Colorado court decision to keep Trump off the ballot, totally great decision, overturned on a 9-0 by the Supreme Court. He was all for it. Not one of these injunctions against Trump from any of these judges. It doesn't matter if they'll be overturned and laughed at higher level courts. He supports each and every one of them. Why do I give a shit what his opinion is? Why do I care? I don't give a shit. He's apparently debating, I am Sean, what's his name? What's Sean's handle? I can't think of it right now, and that's a real bummer. Does everyone know who I'm talking about? Who's he debating? His name's Sean Fitzgerald, but he's got I forget the name of his channel. Here's what Pisco says. Can't fucking wait to get on stage with Sean and hear him defend this criminal regime throwing out Mayor Adams' charges in a political quid pro quo by some bullshit Biden comparisons. It'll be the honor of my life calling that shit out. See you this weekend, Actual Justice Warrior. That's it. Yeah, I like Sean. I like Actual Justice Warrior. Thank you, Vita. Got it first. The rest of you are losers. In other words, what he's saying is, they're going to bring up how corrupt the Biden administration was and how I was okay with it. I can't wait to hear that. Yeah. What Pisco's really saying here, and I'll show you what I put. I can't wait for him to point out how I cheered on blatant corruption from the Biden administration and totally ignore it and pretend now I care about corruption because Trump is evil. Right. I shouldn't be held to the standard that I set forth with 8 years of lawfare against Trump and being perfectly fine and cheering it on. How dare someone bring that up when I now want to scream, corruption, Eric Adams! I haven't seen Sam Cedar debate a lot. Of course I would debate him. Now, I'm not going to get too into the weeds here. But you notice, right out of the gate, what Pisco wants to do is call me dumb and low IQ. Low IQ Rob. Funny thing is, I always address alleged corruption against Biden. Always give my honest take on it. Rob's a coward. When shown the obvious evidence of Trump corruption, he'll say, I don't have an answer to that question. And throw a tantrum. Lol. Lol. And he makes several other posts saying how dumb I am. My response to Mr. Pisco, there's several of them, but wow, cool insult, Pisco, calling me dumb. I'm so dumb I partnered with a sexual pest that violated his friend's consent. And I entered into that partnership even after he said the worst thing that could happen was an assassin shooting at Trump and not killing him. Oh, wait. That wasn't me at all. What does it speak to the intelligence of a person who willingly put all of his eggs in the basket, knowing full well, having heard it straight from Destiny's own mouth, that he said the worst thing that could happen was that bullet missing Trump? But Pisco is willing to sell out for clout, for grift. He was real outraged at Tony Hinchcliffe's joke, But he could partner with Destiny, saying that shit. It was okay. It wasn't beyond the pale. Then we find out that it turns out he's allegedly a sex pest. To just put it generously. Boy, sounds pretty dumb there, Pisco. Maybe before you cast stones and insult other people's intelligence, you gotta take a look in that mirror. Of course, far be it from me to put anything in quotes. I don't want him to cry and get upset. Like the last time I put something about him in quotation marks. So, gotta be careful with that one. Here's the truth about Pisco. Pisco will never accept that there was any amount of corruption that occurred in the lawfare that went particularly against Donald Trump. He will occasionally call out things that he seems as illegal or corrupt when it comes to the Democrats, but only when it could no longer affect his central goal. And his central goal is, his political ideology is, Trump is evil, Orange Man bad. That's it. So if he sees benefit in going after Orange Man by dispensing with some Democrat over here that it doesn't ultimately hurt their cause, he'll say, yeah, what that guy did was, what Bob Menendez did was bad. Because that doesn't affect, and also Trump's bad. You see how that works? But when it came to the narrative of, say, January 6th, one of the reasons it was an insurrection and it was so bad was it delayed an official proceeding. And then we had Democrat Jamal Bowman pull a fire alarm to delay an official procedure. All of a sudden, Pisco didn't have it. Now it was, wait a minute. Maybe he was just trying to get out the door. Yeah, Rob, that's clearly what was going on. Then we saw the video that showed that was bullshit. And then Pisco had already dug himself a hole because they knew that they didn't have shit against all these people connected to Trump with the Russia investigation, other than allegedly lying to law enforcement. He was forced to pretend that that's a huge deal. Huge! Okay, Jamal Bowman clearly lied to law enforcement when he was asked, did you intend for an alarm to go off? An alarm. And he said no. And Pisco admitted that that's bullshit. Clearly he did. So now Pisco's caught. Now here's an issue where it's like, you're right. There's clearly a double standard here. All the people that were alleged Russia conspirators that got charged in the Russia case, and none of them were, but they lied, and I supported that and said it was okay. That's very serious. Now we have a prominent Democrat doing that, so I have my chance to say, yeah, he should have been charged, and he wasn't. No, Pisco instead, and you could ask my audience, what did Pisco do? He said, actually, I don't think he did lie, because when he said he didn't intend for the alarm to go off, I think what he meant was he did intend for the alarm to go off. Why would I give a fuck what that guy says about corruption? Why would I give a shit? Him and all the people like him that were willing to jump through all those hoops. Then, even worse, after years of me debating this dude on issues, first time I ever talked to Pisco, never forget this. I'll see if I can find this clip somewhere. We're going back and forth about the original FISA warrants investigating Trump's team. I have a very simple question for him. Should the FBI have to try to verify information before they use it to get a FISA warrant? Pisco ranted and raved for 4 or 5 minutes without answering the question. This was a prospective lawyer, now lawyer. Yes, they should have to. We don't want a system where there could be a FISA warrant against any American, thereby stripping Americans of their due process, of their Fourth Amendment right to privacy. We don't want that to be stripped anytime the FBI hears any rumor. Oh, we heard that Pisco may be colluding with China to hurt Trump. There you go, FISA warrant against him. Does anyone think that's a good idea? No. So they have to do some due diligence to try to verify some of that information before taking the step of getting a FISA warrant. One of the most thorough investigative tools, expansive investigative tools that you could use against an American. Pisco couldn't just say yes, though. Couldn't. Now, like so many people that I debated going back to 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. No, the FBI didn't do anything improper. They didn't do anything improper. What are you talking about? Then, when they could no longer sustain the lie, when even James Comey had to come out and be like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't have signed those. When they had to admit that 2 of the FISA warrants against Carter Page were illegal. What did Pisco say about it? The 2 FISA warrants that were ruled illegal was literally the FBI getting a FISA warrant to spy on the team of the President of the United States. The President of the United States his team being spied on by the FBI. And what was Pisco's response to this? Anyone remember? What did he say? That seems like a pretty fucking big deal if you're a lawyer and you're concerned about corruption. Anybody remember what he said? He said, "It's regrettable. Oh. It's regrettable." So when Pisco wants to have a discussion about is the dropping of the charges against Eric Adams corrupt, my response is it's regrettable. Next. Moving on. Why don't I use Pisco? Because at least he was willing to debate about some of these things. And unlike 95% of Democrats that I've talked about this, they don't even fucking acknowledge any of the corruption whatsoever. I don't give a shit what these people think. I don't give a shit. They told us for 4 years that the biggest story in this country was supposedly Trump had illegally colluded with the Russians. And we found out that was bullshit. However, his opponent, Hillary Clinton's team, they did in fact collude with Russians. A suspected Russian spy named Igor Dashchenko. Unlike Trump's team, they did in fact get disinformation. Unlike Trump's team, who didn't get any disinformation and therefore didn't use it, Hillary's team did use that disinformation by feeding it to the FBI. The FBI then took that disinformation that they knew was sourced by a suspected Russian spy and used it to spy on Trump's team. They knew that Hillary Clinton had colluded with Russians, and so they used that evidence without verifying it to spy on Trump's team to try to accuse Trump's team of colluding with Russians. The crime that they had already known that Hillary's team had committed. By the way, this was being spearheaded by people like James Comey that obviously hated Trump, Peter Strzok, who talked about needing an insurance policy to stop Trump from winning. I don't give a shit what they think. I don't care. I don't care. What do you think's a bigger deal? If the FBI, if Trump paid for a dossier, let's say we find out 2 years from now that it's clear that the candidate that's going to be the Democratic candidate is Pete Buttigieg. So it's going to be J.D. Vance versus Buttigieg. And Vance is the vice president, and Trump paid for a dossier of disinformation from Chinese spies against Buttigieg. And then his FBI uses that to spy on Pete Buttigieg. Leaks the information to the press, gets FISA warrants, spying them for a full year. Or his DOJ says to drop charges against Eric Adams. Which one do you think's worse? Sarah, thanks for the $5. Says, I'm literally going to add on libs for the next 4 years. I don't care anymore. Petrogard, thank you so much for $10. Keep doing God's work, Mr. Roy. Thank you. I'm trying. I have fun doing it. Cody Folsom for $5 says, you don't understand, Rob. It's not hypocrisy. I had an epiphany, and now I care about corruption. Right. That's exactly it. And then when Democrats get in power 4 or 8 years from now, whatever it be, all of a sudden they'll forget about caring about corruption again. Let's take one example. Trax32, thanks so much for the super chat for $5. Says, Rob, why don't any of these pro-Ukraine keyboard warriors not volunteer to help over there, open their own wallets for the effort? I don't know. Well, you know why. Remember a couple weeks ago I showed the video of me debating Dylan Burns on vaccine mandates? Let me bring it up for you. Why not? A little tangent here, but since we're talking Ukraine, wait a minute. Why do they make all these virtue signals, but when it comes down to them making sacrifices, it's different? Why don't we go to Dylan Burns, who's so focused on Ukraine himself? This is about COVID, but you'll get the picture why. I'll answer your question after we watch this clip. This was edited by my buddy
Your argument,
Tronte.
even for the vaccinated, or for the people that have had the virus, is we should force them to take the vaccine or get tested, right? You're saying that's the caveat, or force them to get tested, right? Correct?
Yeah. I do believe that that's probably the best way to do it. And honestly, Biden thought of it before I did, and I think it was good that he was in charge of it instead of me, because I might have gone a little further.
So just real quick, just to get everything clarified before I make my point, you're admitting that the evidence seems to suggest that natural immunity is superior to the vaccinated, correct?
Yes, with the caveat that they should also get vaccinated as well.
Great, or get tested. That's your argument, right? They should get vaccinated or get tested.
Yes.
So you think that they should get tested or get the vaccine, even though they're more protected than the vaccinated, correct?
Say one more time. I'm sorry. I just want to be very clear.
You think that people that have had COVID and have natural immunity should get tested or get vaccinated, right?
Yes.
And your philosophical premise to such is, even though it might be against their wishes.
But everyone, by the way, this is everyone, them included.
Okay. And so my question to you are you vaccinated? You don't have to tell me if you don't want.
Yes, I am. I have both vaccines.
Should you be forced to get tested every week?
No, because I'm vaccinated.
You're more likely to spread and catch the disease than people with natural immunity, and you think they should get tested every week?
I'm more likely to catch and spread the disease, but I think they should also get vaccinated. You know what, Rob? I'd be perfectly fine with people who have natural immunity going that route. If there was an exception, and you can prove that to me right now.
So wait a minute. What made you change your philosophical position? It almost seems like...
Wait. Wait, 1 second. Give me a moment here. Somebody's telling me that's not true.
He's reading his chat.
I'm trying to... I thought we were going to talk
true?
about something a little bit different here. So that's why... give me a second here. He's right here, actually. If he's saying affect everyone with COVID, your Rob is right. Yeah, I mean, honestly... So
you just backtracked your entire position as soon as it was an imposition to you. As soon as it would have been having to get tested every week. Now you're like, you know what? Then people with natural immunity don't have to get tested.
Wait, can I not? Okay.
To answer your question, why don't they send their own money or go fight? That's why. Because as soon as it's an imposition on themselves, oh, wait. I've long suggested, how many studies you show? Oh, X number of percentage of Americans think that the country is systemic racist. Okay. It's tax season. When you're filling out your taxes, I propose a change to our tax forms. The very last question on the tax form should be, what's your race? And if you're white, the following question should be, do you believe that the country is systemically racist against minorities? And if you check yes, then we take an additional 50% of your money and we give it to minorities. Who's against that? Let's see how many people believe in systemic racism then, right? It's okay when you're not really affected. Same old bullshit. Oh yeah, when it's other people making sacrifices, of course, the Ukrainian people dying for a cause that I believe in, fuck them, send more to the meat grinder. Oh, but me? That's different. I don't want to send my money. I don't want to go volunteer. My son's name's Hank. That's why. Yeah, make people's lives hell. Make them get tested every day. If they won't take this anything for the public health. Okay, but you just admitted that people that have already had COVID are more safe than you, who's been vaccinated but haven't had COVID. So should you be tested? Well, no. Well, okay. Maybe the previously infected don't have to get... Oh, once it's an imposition on you, Dylan also in that same debate talked greatly about vaccine mandates should be something that should be put forth, with one exception, people that want to go to Black Lives Matter protest, because he doesn't want the government having information on them. Oh, and it just so happens that at that point, what do you think Dylan was doing? Out violating the orders of the doctors that were telling us, the professionals, the scientists that were telling us not to gather in large groups because cheering for Black Lives Matter was so important. Jess Gerald, thanks so much for the membership. I'm the heckin' man, bro. Thank you, Jess. That's where they were. Anyways, getting back now. If you go back to circa 2016, where you had Crossfire Hurricane, which was the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, and then you had the mid-year exam, which was the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton for her private server. One of the arguments that we heard over and over and over again was how severe it is that Trump obstructed justice. The Mueller report, there was talk of obstruction of justice. The classified documents case, there's talk of obstruction of justice because Trump told some dude to move some boxes. It's a big deal to the Democrats. Huge deal. But in the mid-year exam investigation into Hillary's team, we had the clearest case of obstruction of justice you've ever found. Congress, an investigative body, legally subpoenaed documents from Hillary's team. Hillary's team received the subpoena, and then they deleted evidence that was subpoenaed. That's as clear of a case of obstruction of justice you'll ever find. Oh, did someone gift a lot of memberships? I bet it was Jess Gerald. Wow. Yes, thank you, Jess Gerald. Thanks so much, man. You're always so generous. I really appreciate it, man. Incredibly generous. Always are, man. I really appreciate it. Everyone who donates, I really do. I'll go back at the end and make sure I read everyone's super chats and memberships too. Thank you. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm some fucking redneck. I'm no one special. I do this as a hobby. I'm not paid by Russia. I'm not paid by USAID. I don't got Progressive Victory PAC backing me. I don't got a bunch of big streamers that are pushing me or any shit like that. Little old me. That's it. That's who I am. As a hobby. So as I'm trying to grow a channel for 5 years and constantly getting community strikes on places like YouTube because I'm talking about problems with the 2020 election or problems with vaccine mandates or the origin of the virus, etc. Or I'm getting all kinds of strikes and shit on Twitch because I'm talking about trans issues and my thoughts on the biological reality of men versus women. You know, all that good shit. Jess Gerald, thank you so much, man. Incredible. Another 50 memberships. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thomas O'Brien, thank you for 20 memberships. You guys are too nice to me. Fuck, I should stream much more for as nice as you guys are. I honestly feel bad that my work schedule keeps me from doing this as much as I would like to. But you can tell I'm having fun. You can tell. Thank you, guys. You're the best. Really appreciate it. Thomas, Jess Gerald, thank you so much. Incredible. So when you go back and you look at that, clear case of obstruction of justice. The whole investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, occurring at the same time as the mid-year exam. Even as just some dumb layman like me who enjoys watching Judge Judy and Law and Order every once in a while, something peculiar started to come up. Why was it that in all the shit I know, or think I know, about law enforcement and the judicial system, all of it seemed to basically be working the same way I would expect when it came to the investigation into Trump's team. Let me explain what I mean. The idea was we're going after this big fish up top. So if I'm watching like NYPD Blue or The Shield or The Wire, any show, but Rob, that's all fiction. Hear me out. When oftentimes or even if I'm watching the First 48, what they oftentimes would do is you go after a low-level person. So if you're trying to break up a big drug ring and you want the guy at the top, you find a low-level person that's selling drugs on the street. Then you arrest them. And you say, oh boy, we got you dead to rights. You're on camera. Here's the deal. You're looking at 5 to 10 years. But we'll offer you a deal. Every episode of the First 48 I've watched, well, not every, but most have this. Hey man, you were in the car that someone shot and killed that other guy. We'll give you immunity or we'll give you a sweetheart deal if you testify against the other people. Okay. That's what they were doing against Trump. Democrats knew it, by the way. They know that's how it normally works. Every single time oh boy, they got George Papadopoulos. They charged him. He's going to flip on Trump. Here we go. It's Mueller time. Remember that shit? Oh boy, they're getting Roger Stone. He'll flip. Oh, they got Trump's assistant Nada. He'll flip. Yep, they're all going to flip on Trump. Rudy Giuliani, let's get him. He'll flip on Trump. Maybe. How'd they do it with the mid-year exam? Is that what they did? Did they charge low-level people with crimes that they knew they committed? To try to get them to flip on higher people? No. You know what they did? They gave everyone immunity. That's what they did. They said, you know what we'll do? We'll give them all immunity. So, for example, the IG report admitted that the FBI all but knew that only 2 or 3 people would have had access to the servers to be able to delete this shit. And they heavily suspected that Paul Combetta, this guy that worked as an IT guy, was the one who deleted the servers. Now, they could have got subpoenas, checked his records more, threatened him with jail time, etc. But instead, they said, well, what we did was we gave him immunity. Because we didn't want just some low-level guy going down. So we gave him immunity, and then we brought him in and we said, okay, tell us what happened. And this was his official story. Well, 6 months ago, Cheryl Mills, who was the lawyer that was basically Hillary's assistant, Cheryl Mills called me into her office and said, hey, we want you to delete everything that's more than like 180 days old. But I forgot to delete it. And so then, when I got the subpoena, I was driving to work, and I had an he literally says this, I had an oh shit moment. So he went in and intentionally deleted evidence, a felony that he knew was subpoenaed. Because he had an oh shit moment that he forgot to do it 6 months ago. And they said, well, like, several days before you did this deletion, you personally met with Cheryl Mills, the record show. What did you talk about? You know what he said? Does anyone remember? So Cheryl Mills told him to delete this shit before, in his words. He forgot, had an oh shit moment, deleted it, then lied to the FBI about deleting it until they gave him immunity. Then the FBI's like, okay, but like a couple days before you deleted this shit, after the subpoena came in, you personally met with Cheryl Mills, like the top person you're going to meet with. What did you all talk about? And he says, I don't remember. And the FBI said, okay, good enough for us. That's it. Now, why do I bring this story up in the context of Mayor Eric Adams? Because when I brought this up, 95% of Democrats have no fucking clue about this. If I would say, holy shit, did you hear they caught Trump's team deleting subpoenaed emails? The FBI caught them. They'd go, that's fucking crazy, lock them up. And I said, actually, that was Hillary's team. They'd go, but that's whataboutism. That's what they would do. It's okay when Hillary's team, like, they'll scream about obstruction of justice, but when there's a more blatant case of Hillary's team doing it or Trump's opponents doing it, it's no big deal. They'll scream about Russia collusion, but when we see that it was actually Hillary's team that did it, they're like, it's no big deal. They'll scream about mishandling of classified documents, but when they see that it was Joe Biden that did it, it's no big deal. But when I brought this up to people that were more in the know, like Pisco, this is what they said. Well, it's because the FBI has prosecutorial discretion. In other words, they don't have to charge every crime they see. And he's right. And that's what the IG report did. And it has long since been my criticism with the IG report that what it did was it just looked at like every unique situation in the Trump investigation and in the Hillary investigation and said, is this within the bounds of legally what's allowed to happen with the FBI? In some cases, no. They illegally got FISA warrants against Trump. Trump's team, I'm sorry. But most of what they were saying, there's a wide range of acceptable legal behavior of the FBI. For example, the FBI doesn't have to charge someone that's deleting subpoenaed evidence. It is within their legal rights to say no. That doesn't mean that they broke the law. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they did something against ethical guidelines at the FBI. The problem is, when you stack up each situation, almost every time it's the FBI going as hard as possible, every single time against Trump and the people surrounding Trump, and as easy as possible going after the people that are his opponents. But if you look at each, if you didn't know any of that and you just said, let's take out decision 34 in the Hillary Clinton investigation. Technically, are they allowed to give this guy immunity? Yeah, okay. Now let's go to situation 77 in the Trump. Technically, are they allowed to interview Flynn when his lawyer's not there? Yeah. Prosecutorial discretion. That's what we were told. Okay. Why doesn't that exist now with Eric Adams? If the DOJ could decide, for example, not to charge Joe Biden with mishandling of classified information, in part because he's too old and feeble. If they could decide not to charge Paul Combetta because, it'd be a long, drawn-out process. Why can't they decide not to charge Eric Adams? What's the crime here? What's the corruption? I'll skip to the end and tell you what their argument will be. Because when the FBI was not charging Hillary's team and Paul Combetta, they did so for good and noble reasons. But when Trump's DOJ isn't charging Eric Adams, it's for evil and corrupt reasons. That's it. You see? It's why if Trump says, make America great again, it's racist. But when it was part of Bill Clinton's motto in the 96 campaign, that's not racist. Well, why? Because Trump's racist and Bill Clinton's not. You start with the conclusion and then work backwards. Trump's alleged quid pro quo in his phone call with Zelensky, that's corrupt because he just wanted his opponent to be investigated. But Biden's quid pro quo, forcing the firing of a prosecutor that was looking into his son, that wasn't corrupt. That wasn't because he wanted to protect his son. It ended up protecting his son, but that wasn't the motivation. It was because that was the right thing to do. You see? I'm sorry. You all laid the great framework for this. Fuck you. Fuck off. If you said you had no problem with the FBI knowing full fucking well that this guy deleted subpoenaed evidence, clear as case of obstruction of justice you can imagine, and them saying, what they should have said was, we got this fucker, nail him to the wall, tell him he's going to get 20 years in prison unless he wants to tell us who the fuck told him to do this deletion. And instead you were fine with them going, we'll give him immunity and say, I don't remember what I talked to Cheryl Mills about. Okay. Because they have the right, the DOJ and the FBI has the right to charge who they want. There you go. Now, let's say you're not one of those pricks, like Pisco. Let's say that you're someone that's like, I didn't like that shit, I called it out. Now I'm calling out Trump's DOJ. Is there anyone like that? Is there anyone here that says, you know what? I didn't like it when the FBI did that shit. I thought that was bullshit lawfare. I thought the double standard and how they treated Trump with the investigation in him versus how they treated Hillary and her team, I thought that was an egregious double standard. But I still don't like what's going on with this Eric Adams situation. Is there anyone like that in the chat? I'll talk to you. I'll even take your word for it. Anyone? Into Q-Tip says that's him. There you go. Would you first admit then, into Q-Tips, ML, you as well, that the pardoning of Eric, or not the pardoning, the not bringing charges against Eric Adams pales in comparison? Would you admit that? Could I get into Q-Tips and ML to admit that? Doesn't mean that you have to be okay with it, but it pales in comparison. Oh, you're going to miss Work. Oh, shit, man. I took next week off work, so I'll be streaming a lot. Okay, ML admits that. Good. Okay, that's number one. Second, I won't ask the question. I'll just say my beliefs. This is a question to everyone in the audience. You could give a yes or a no. Or yes being that you agree with me, or no being you disagree. All right, you ready? It is my belief that at the top levels of politics, to the point where you're a governor, you're a senator, you are a mayor of one of America's largest cities, you're a president, vice president, my guess is that 80%, if not more, have committed some sort of financial crime. A campaign finance violation, getting kickbacks, hiding money in shell companies. Do people agree with that? That's how I feel. I feel like Trump's probably guilty of that shit too. That's true. I agree, Crisco. We're all screwed. But you're in Canada, so you're really screwed. Okay, so if we agree that it's a law, 80% or a majority, the problem I have is this. If we have law enforcement that instead of going after everyone or as many people as possible that have done these sort of shit, instead only selectively go after the people that they see as a threat to their power, that's a fucking problem. For example, take a crime like jaywalking. Would it be bad if 80% of the people in a particular town jaywalked? I suppose it would be. Could cause pedestrian accidents, car accidents, etc. It could. Okay? But what if the sheriff there only had his police aggressively go after people that he knew voted against him? That seems like that'd be a far bigger problem. The same is true when it comes to, particularly, lawfare coming out of places like the Southern District of New York, where they went after Trump with the Alvin Bragg shit. Remember, Trump was accused of basically a campaign finance violation, that they Frankensteined this law for the first time in history to go after a former president and frontrunner candidate for president of the next term. They created a law that they'd never gone after any other person with that said they falsified records, which almost all campaign finance violations would be, in order to affect an election, which almost all campaign finance violations would be, by committing a third underlying crime, which could be falsification of records, some other crimes. Meanwhile, stationed in New York was Hillary Clinton's campaign that the FEC had already fined for campaign finance violations, for falsifying records. But Alvin Bragg decided, same year, FEC already ruled on the violation. He decided not to go after her, just Trump. That's Southern District of New York. So when Trump puts out an executive order and says, we're going to aggressively look into cases that we think are examples of lawfare, of going after people not because of the crimes they committed, but going after them for political reasons. Basically, now I'll fully admit, I need to do more reading into the Eric Adams case if I give a shit. I don't really. The allegation seems to be that he was receiving money from foreign entities, possibly Turkey. These included upgraded airplane seats to first class. Let's assume it's all true. Let's go further than that. Let's assume that he directly received $1 million in cash from the government of Turkey. Okay? Is that more severe of a crime if so many people are doing that in Washington? Than he was selectively than if he was selectively prosecuted for politics? Notice how Sarah G's a fucking lazy troll. You notice it? Here's someone who thinks they're being funny. Sarah, you're probably not even a woman. I'm not surprised that you're alone on Valentine's Day, though, with your lack of trolling. We just asked it to be original funny. Here's Sarah's. What's really annoying, Rob, is like they took Trump to court for business documents, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, so horrible." And we're like, "Yeah, well, I don't care, because like Obama killed Americans or Hillary with our emails." LOL. Yeah, we're not all stupid like that, Sarah. In fact, oftentimes when I debate, you're probably a Destiny fan, so your sex pest buddy that you're fucking supporting, right? Oftentimes, when he debates me, he gets fucking shamed, just like your boy Pisco. We get it. We get the need for mockery and satire because you can't keep up on the facts. But go fuck yourself, right? Still sad you're alone here on this Valentine if you're honestly being truthful in that. Lansing for $5. Thanks so much. Says, is it New York where the injunctions against Doge are coming from? Yup. Yep. So now let's look at what we have all these people resigning. Why didn't they resign when we saw the corrupt lawfare against Trump? Why didn't they resign when Biden was pardoning his fucking family? Why didn't they resign when the whistleblowers from the IRS talked about how they weren't allowed to look in to the Bidens? But they're principled now, huh? Let's see the response. Maybe. Oh, AJW. Bookmarks. I bookmarked this, I believe. So Danielle Sassoon resigned. And we're going to read through some of the Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, his response to the resignation. I don't know if we'll read it all, but this is from yesterday. Regarding United States v. Adams, number 24. Ms. Sassoon, in response to your refusal to comply with my instructions to dismiss the prosecution of Mayor Eric Adams, I write to notify you of the following. First, your resignation's accepted. By the way, I'll interject here. Great, let them all resign. Sounds awesome. Keep going. More resignations. The decision is based on your choice to continue pursuing a politically motivated prosecution, despite an express instruction to dismiss the case. You lost sight of the oath you took when you started at the Department of Justice by suggesting that you retain discretion to interpret the Constitution in a manner inconsistent with the policies of a democratically elected president and a Senate-confirmed Attorney General. Second, you indicated that the prosecution team is aware of your communications with the Justice Department, is supportive of your approach, and is unwilling to comply with the order to dismiss the case. Accordingly, the AUSAs principally responsible for this case are being placed on off-duty administrative leave, pending investigations by the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of Professional Responsibility, both of which will also evaluate your conduct. Great. You're bragging that you refuse to comply with your boss's orders regarding this? Great. Then we're going to investigate you, as it should be. At the conclusion of these investigations, the Attorney General will determine whether termination or other action is appropriate. Based on attendance at our recent meetings, I understand that the relevant attorneys to be Hagen Skoten and Derek Wickstrom. If either of them wished to comply with my directive but was prohibited from doing so by you or the management of your office, or if these attorneys wish to be made aware of other mitigating considerations they believe are relevant, they can contact me in my office directly. The Justice Management Division of the attorneys have stepped in to remove access to electronic devices, and I ask that you and all of the attorneys cooperate with these efforts to preserve electronic and hard copy records relating to this matter, whether they are stored on their official or personal devices. Great. They should aggressively, criminally go after anyone that was willfully defying these orders. Totally agree. They have the right to resign. They don't have the right to communicate to try to sabotage the orders of their boss. Third, under your leadership, the office has demonstrated itself to be incapable of fairly and impartially reviewing the circumstances of this prosecution. Therefore, the prosecution of Mayor Adams is transferred to the Justice Department, which will file a motion to dismiss the charges pending Rule 48 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. My prior directive regarding no further targeting of Mayor Adams or additional investigative steps related to this matter remains in place. Background. On January 20, 2025, Executive Order 14147, Trump established the following policy, quote, "It is the policy of the United States to identify and take appropriate action to correct past misconduct by the federal government related to the weaponization of law enforcement." In a February 5, 2025 memorandum set forth by the Department General's policy regarding zealous advocacy on behalf of the United States, the Attorney General stated, quote, "Any attorney who, because of their personal political views or judgments, declines to sign a brief or appear in court, refuses to advance good faith arguments on behalf of the administration, or otherwise delays or impedes the department's mission will be subject to discipline and potential termination, consistent with the applicable law." Your office was not exempted from the President's policy in the Attorney General's memorandum. On February 10th, I directed you to dismiss the prosecution of Mayor Adams based on well-founded concerns regarding weaponization, election interference, and impediments that the case has been imposed on Mayor Adams' ability to govern and cooperate with federal law enforcement to keep New York safe. My February 10th, 2025 memorandum indicated that I acted pursuant to the authorization of the Attorney General. The mechanism for seeking dismissal is Rule 48 of the Federal Rules and Criminal Procedure. Note 2 to Rule 48 explains that, quote, "The rule confers the power to file a dismissal by leave of court on the Attorney General, as well as on the United States Attorney, since under existing law the Attorney General exercises general superintendence and direction over the United States Attorneys, the functions and the other officers of the Department of Justice, and all functions of agencies employees of the DOJ subject to the vested in the Attorney General." Prior to issuing this memorandum, I reviewed public filings in this matter and your office prosecution memoranda and classified submission. I met with you and the prosecution team, held a separate meeting involved you, the prosecution team, and the defense counsel, and then met with you privately in my office. During those meetings, I invited written submissions from both sides, and I carefully reviewed those submissions. Thus, your recent suggestions about your lack of process around the Justice Department's decision are not grounded in reality. You have not complied with the clear directives of my memorandum. Further, you made clear that you do not intend to do so during a telephone call with myself and Chad Mizzle, the Attorney General's Chief of Staff, on February 11, 2025, as well as in written submission by the Attorney General that day. You also stated that the prosecution team had reviewed your letter to the Attorney General and that they would not file a motion to dismiss. At approximately 1:50 today, you tendered your resignation by email. Discussion. We're only going to read a little more of this. The weaponization finding in my February 10, 2025 memorandum was made pursuant to a policy set forth by President Trump, who is the only elected official in the executive branch, in connection with the decision that was authorized by the Senate-confirmed Attorney General of the United States, and entirely consistent with guidance by the Attorney General shortly after that confirmation. Your office has no authority to contest the weaponization finding or the second independent basis requiring dismissal set forth in my memorandum. The Justice Department will not tolerate the insubordination and apparent misconduct reflected in the approach that you and your office have taken in this manner. This is the part that I think is important, though we'll briefly mention part 2. 1. Improper weaponization. You're well aware of the department's weaponization concerns regarding the handling of this investigation and prosecution of Mayor Adams. Those concerns include behavior that supports, at a minimum, unacceptable appearances of impropriety and the politicization of your office. The investigation was accelerated after Mayor Adams publicly criticized Biden's failed immigration policies and led by a former U.S. attorney with deep connections to the former Attorney General, who oversaw the weaponization of the Justice Department. So it was led by someone who was chummy with Garland. Based on my review in our meetings, the charging decision was rushed as the 2024 presidential election approached, and as the former U.S. attorney appears to have been pursuing potential political appointments in the event that Kamala Harris won. In other words, Adams comes out and criticizes Biden. This attorney general's like, oh boy, I'm going to rush this before the 2024 election so I could get a scalp and then say, see Kamala, now appoint me to something when she wins. After President Trump won the election in late 2024, the former U.S. attorney launched a personal website, which closely resembles a campaign website, that touts articles about ongoing prosecution of Mayor Adams with titles such as, quote, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams has come for the kings. A mayor, a rapper, a senator, a billionaire. Meet the man who has prosecuted them all. And federal prosecutor Damian Williams flexes Southern District of New York power against Eric Adams and Sean Combs. And federal prosecutor the former U.S. attorney increased the appearances of impropriety by releasing an op-ed on January 16, 2025, entitled An Indictment of the Sad State of New York Government. In that piece, he disparaged Mayor Adams with the following comment, quote, America's most vital city is being led with a broken ethical compass. The former U.S. attorney also made what I reasonably interpret as a reference to himself in the piece when he suggested there was a need for elected officials willing to disrupt the status quo. So before this case even begins, the Attorney General spearheading it basically has a campaign website up bragging about how he's going after Mayor Adams, talking about how he's unethical, and people like him need to step up to disrupt the status quo. You did not directly defend the former U.S. attorney's behavior in response to a recent defense motion, nor could you. So now he's talking about this woman that resigned. She didn't defend it. His actions inappropriately politicized and tainted your office prosecution, potentially permanently. Instead of addressing these concerns with the court, you simply claimed that these actions were beside the point. That's not true. The actions by the former U.S. attorney implicate the concerns that President Trump raised in Executive Order 14147 in connection with the prosecution of an elected official who voiced opposition to the prior administration's policies. The fact that the district court denied the defense motion does not establish that continuing the prosecution of Adams reflects an appropriate exercise of prosecutorial discretion. In other words, the asshole that was leading this was clearly doing it for political reasons. And now it doesn't even matter if he's guilty or not. The entire point was we need to stop fucking going after people for political reasons. Yes, Adams probably did some slimy shit like 50 to 60 to 70% of all these other elected officials. The problem is the selective targeting of him for political reasons. Which even the people that said they're against what's going on with Adams occurring admitted that that's worse. That the selective prosecution and the weaponization is worse. Which is exactly why they're saying the case needs to be dropped. The fact that the district court denied the motion doesn't establish prosecutorial discretion. Similarly, the fact the attorneys convinced a grand jury to return an indictment based on one-sided and inherently partial presentation of the evidence does not establish that the case was appropriate at the time, much less that it would be appropriate to continue to pursue the case based on events that have occurred after the true bill was returned. The Justice Department will not ignore the fact that the timing of the charges authorized by the former U.S. Attorney, Williams, I believe was his name, with apparent political aspiration interferes with Mayor Adams' ability to run a campaign in the 2025 election. He's up for election coming up, Adams. Your reference to the schedule underlying the prosecution of Senator Menendez is not in any way persuasive in light of the evidence handling issues that arose in connection with that trial. If anything, that experience counsels in favor of more caution in these matters, not less. But the record does not reflect such caution. In October 2024, the attorney responsible for the prosecution of Adams represented that the first batch of discovery in the case included about 560 gigabytes of data. Thus, at a trial date was negotiated, Mayor Adams is faced with an impossible choice between seeking to defend himself at a pre-election trial in hopes that he could be campaigned based on exoneration and taking a reasonable amount of time to review the discovery and prepare his defense at a post-election trial. His acquiescence in the former option does not justify your office's decision. In other words, he's got to run a campaign and go through all of this evidence for discovery. So he had two choices. If he really wanted time to go through all the evidence, he'd probably have to set a trial date after the election. But if he did, he'd probably lose because people would say, oh, he's got a trial coming up, and that'd be a reason to vote against him. So instead, he went with the former to try to rush the trial, hoping that he would be exonerated before the election. Again, suggesting to the political timing of this. Just like they did with Trump, how they set up, how you saw Jack Smith intentionally tried to schedule things as difficult as possible to influence Trump's ability to campaign. In your letter to the Attorney General, you made the dubious choice to invoke Justice Scalia. As you're likely aware from your professional experience, Scalia fully understood the risk of weaponization in law for, quote, nothing is so politically effective as the ability to charge that one's opponent and his associates are not merely wrong-headed, naive, and ineffective, but in all probability crooks. And nothing so effectively gives the appearance of validity of such charges as a Justice Department investigation, and even better, prosecution. Morris v. Olson. While the former U.S. Attorney is not special counsel, Justice Scalia Morrison dissent aptly summarized the department's weaponization concerns here. There's also great irony in your invocation of the famous speech by former Attorney General Robert Jackson. His remarks are unquestionably relevant here, but not in the way you suggested. Jackson warned that, quote, some measure of centralized control over federal prosecutors was necessary. Jackson, the federal prosecutor, 24. The senior leadership of the Justice Department exercises that control. Moreover, one of Jackson's concerns was that, quote, the most dangerous power of the prosecutor arises from the risk that the prosecutor would pick people that he thinks should get, rather than pick cases that need to be prosecuted. Quote from Jackson, it is in this realm in which the prosecutor picks some person whom he dislikes or desires to embarrass that the greatest danger of abuse of prosecuting power lies. It is here that law enforcement becomes personal, and that the real crime becomes that of being unpopular with the predominant or governing group, being attached to the wrong political views, or being personally obnoxious to or in the way of the prosecutor himself. Regardless of how the investigation of Adams was initiated, by 2024, your office's work on the case was extremely problematic in that regard, as is outlined before. Finally, your suggestion that Trump should issue a pardon to Adams reveals that your office's insubordination is little more than a preference to avoid a duty that you regard as unpleasant and politically inconvenient. Your oath to uphold the Constitution does not permit you to substitute your policy judgment for that of the President or senior leadership of the Justice Department, and you're in no position to suggest that the President exercise exclusive Article 2 authority to make your job easier. Reason 2 is it interferes with Adams' ability to govern. Then he has the Rule 48 dismissal. Then let's go to additional issues to be addressed. Finally, and to be clear, while I elected to address 2 particular dispositive concerns of my February 10th memorandum, I have many other concerns about this case. The case turns on factual and legal theories that are, at best, extremely aggressive. For example, the district court explained that, quote, it is not inconceivable that the Second Circuit of the Supreme Court might, at some point in the future, hold that an official act as defined in the McDonald is necessary under Statute 666. At least in government actors. The district court also acknowledged that there's some force to Mayor Adams' challenges to the office's quo theories in the case. The thing of value in this case are campaign contributions, which require high proof under McCormick, as the office knows from the challenges you encountered in connection with the decision to dismiss the Benjamin case. There's also questionable behavior reflected in certain of the prosecution team's decisions, which will be addressed in forthcoming investigations. Witnesses in that case do not appear to have been treated in a manner that's consistent with your claims about the seriousness of the allegations against Adams. It is my understanding that around the time the charges were filed, the prosecution team made representations to defense counsel regarding Mayor Adams' status in the investigation that are inconsistent with the Justice Manual's definitions of a target and subject. In the same period, despite having already started to draft a prosecution member proposing to charge Adams, the prosecution team invited the mayor to proffer, in effect, baiting him into unprotected statements after the line prosecutors had already decided to move forward with the case. Now, what they're saying is, the reason this should be dropped is it was brought for political reasons. It's interfering with his ability to be a mayor. And there are problems with the case anyways that he might not be found guilty. If you believe that there was weaponization against Trump, and you're like, yeah, I was against that, do you really think it's beyond the pale that there was weaponization against Eric Adams by a political neophyte that wanted to lobby for a position in the Kamala Harris administration, and that they were pissed at Adams because Adams saw the tea leaves? The legal immigration was massively unpopular in New York. And by him criticizing Biden going into the election season in 2024, it was actually helpful to Trump. But Rob, Trump wasn't going to win New York anyways. Maybe. But the mayor of America's biggest city that is overwhelmingly Democrat, opining about the biggest issue in the election, illegal immigration, certainly had some effect on Democrats around this country that also were fed up with illegal immigration. Fuck you, Sarah G. Apologize to you for shit. Here's what I can do. Mute you so I can't see your shit-ass post. And an apology from me. Agreed, ML. Let's assume they did have something on him. And? You think there's something on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell and Dan Crenshaw and Mark Mulvaney? Yeah. But if we're going to be like, well, we're just going to go after one. We're always going to go after the people that harm us politically and leave all those other ones on board. So I don't blame Trump. Here's the point. I have no doubt Trump's committed some crimes. I'm shocked that the shit he's been accused of is all they could get. I would assume a Manhattanite billionaire probably fucking committed all kinds of financial crimes. Look into campaign finance violations. Some of the campaign finance laws are literally so crazy that even if you run for office and you're like, hey, I'm going to do everything on the up and up, you could run afoul of them. So if we have a Justice Department that's like, great, we know that 80% of people are committing these crimes, but we're just going to selectively go after a handful, it is not sufficient to go, but aren't they guilty? Is Adams guilty? Maybe. So? If he was selected for political reasons, then yes, the case should be dropped. Sarah G., one last word I'll say to you. If I misread you, I apologize. I'm not sifting through it. I saw several of your comments. It looked like you were an obvious troll. I think I read you right. If not, apologies. I don't want to read your post anymore. It's not about you. I don't really give a shit what your feelings are. Hope you still enjoy the show. Now, here are other possibilities. Maybe Eric Adams is cooperating with Trump's DOJ to get bigger fish. But they can't come out and say that now because it would jeopardize their investigation into those people. So they're not going to tell. If Adams is going to help them find actual corruption, for example, at the Southern District of New York, or with prominent Democrats that were encouraging law enforcement officials to target him, or Republicans for that matter, it wouldn't matter. That's far bigger fish than Adams taking money from Turkey. But they're not going to tell that to these Southern District of New York attorneys that are resigning. And lastly, why does this matter at all? To the Democrats that say, hey, the FBI, the DOJ, they have the right to charge and not charge crimes as they see fit. Let's assume the worst is true from the Democrats' perspective. Let's assume that the only reason Trump's DOJ is recommending dropping these charges is because they want Adams to enforce their immigration policies. And? So? You mean they want the mayor of America's largest city to comply with the federal government laws to clean up something they see as a huge injustice in this country, which is illegal immigration? And they think that cooperation is more important than getting him on some petty campaign finance violation? Okay. I don't really like that, if that's all it is, to be honest. But in the grand scheme of corruption in Washington, how many times do you think the FBI has allowed known Russian criminals, other sorts of criminals, off the hook for cooperation in other matters? How many times? I'm not saying Eric Adams seems trustworthy. I don't give a shit about that at all. I wouldn't trust him if I'm Trump's team, but it's sort of irrelevant to the ethical considerations of this question. The last thing to say is this. What it comes down to is the boy that cried wolf. When you, for years, say everything evil under the Trump's a criminal for campaign finance violation, mishandling classified documents, he's a stooge of Russia, he's a sexual assaulter, he did that, he overvalued Mar-a-Lago, he did all that, and your hair's on fire every single time. No one gives a shit anymore. No one gives a shit. They tried to assassinate Trump twice, and you guys were just like, well, yeah, but he is literally Hitler. We don't give a shit. Especially when the guy you all endorsed just pardoned his whole fucking family. We don't care anymore. Fuck you. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, one of my favorite quotes ever. When I am weaker than you, I ask you for freedom because that is according to your principles. When I am stronger than you, I take away your freedom because that is according to my principles. I'm sick and tired of these people that were absolutely fine with the corruption in our government for decades, with the weaponization of it going after Trump and Trump-connected people for the past 8 years. Blatant. Double standards. Corruption. Now that they've lost, saying, oh, but your principles are that you can't go after any of us and you can't reciprocate any. Shut the fuck up. I don't care what any of you think. I care what ML thinks. What Q-Tips thinks. If they're like, yeah, I called out, if I believe that they called out the corruption previously and have problems with potential corruption from this administration, absolutely. I share those concerns. I am not a sycophant. I will call out any corruption, even of the people I vote for, if I see it. But I don't give a shit what someone like Pisco or Destiny thinks, or Rachel Maddow, or Jake Tapper, or Anderson Cooper, or Katie Collins, or Adam Schiff, or Adam Kissinger, or Liz Cheney, or Joe Biden if he's not eating chocolate chip ice cream, or Kamala Harris, or Merrick Garland, or Bill Barr. I don't give a fuck what those people think. I don't care at all. At all. And the American people don't either. I don't give a shit. Be like someone comes up and just sucker punches you in the face. And you draw your fist back, you turn to your fist and you go, but you're a peaceful man. You can't hit me. You can't hit me. You can't hit me. A third party that says, listen, you shouldn't hit him. Maybe I listen to, but I'm not going to listen to that dude. Anytime Pisco wants to comment to me about any alleged corruption of the Trump administration, my answer will be, it's regrettable. Next. As Pisco's answer, when the FBI was illegally spying on Trump's team, it's regrettable. Boy, sounds like he was real troubled by it, huh? It's regrettable. Oh, you don't like that answer now? That's a bullshit answer. Oh my God, Rob, that seems to suggest you really don't give a shit about any of this. Really? That's what saying that's regrettable means? Huh, can we go back and look at your statement? No, when I said that, what I meant was fuck you. I don't know if they've realized America's good faith. Look, they're never going to give up. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about people. I'm shitty. You're shitty. Trump's shitty. Elon's shitty. Eric Adams is shitty. Some of us more than others. When you're willing to use lawfare, you might just dig up something real and serious. So they're going to keep going. They're never going to stop. They can't. Too much is on the line. But Rob, what if Elon gets access to all of our data? As opposed to what? The fucking unelected middle management bureaucrats that have had access to all of our data for the past 20 years? That was cool? Never a fucking concern about that? You didn't give a shit then, but now that it's Elon, it's a problem. Fuck you. I just don't care what these people think. Oh no, I hear my man crying down there. What do you think would happen if she was on the other foot? What if, Kamala Harris would have won, and right out of the gate she's like, we think that we still see these programs from Trump that was funding, this organization. We're going to stop that. We're going to redirect. And some no-name judge in Arkansas was like, no, you can't do that. And then another one in Nebraska said, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. See, what they want you to believe, just like with all the lawfare against Trump, well, he must be uniquely the worst and evil and guilty because look at how many cases have been brought against him. And they hope you don't recognize, oh no, they're just using lawfare. Oh, no. It's not that I cared there and now that I don't care because it's Elon. It's that it's too late. The data's there. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have seen my data. So I'm supposed to, right now, at the moment that it's like, wow, we're going to investigate to see how this shit's been used corruptly. Now's the moment that Taylor M's like, well, now you have to be concerned. Now it's the time. Right now's the key time. Right before we investigate the corruption, now's the key time to say, we're taking a firm stance. No one should have access to this data. Okay, are you suggesting eliminating all of that data? No, I'm not suggesting that. It's just we shouldn't have any oversight. Because whoever has oversight would then be able to see that data. And you would be okay with that, which you shouldn't be okay with. Again, go back to the Frank Herbert quote. Taylor M. was perfectly fine with that data being used in any number of ways that benefited Democrats or the establishment. Perfectly fine with it. I'll bet you won't find one time in any posting of Taylor M. or if you could see, have a crystal ball and see everything that he's ever said or she to their friends. Never once was this brought up. But now to be brought up on the, according, when I have power, when my side has power, then we'll use it to aggressively go after you because that's according to my principles. But now that it's your side with power, I'll beg for forgiveness. I'll beg for leniency because that's according to your principles. You see? I had the same argument with never Trump Republicans over and over again. We want to start charging people? Never voted for a Democrat in any general election. Ron Paul guy. Straw man at it again, Rob. Taylor M., you could claim to be a Ron Paul guy. Ron Paul is absolutely in favor of auditing this shit. You would be criticizing Ron Paul wanting to audit the Fed because you would say, well, the Fed could have access to our data, and if Ron Paul gets to audit it, then he too would have access to that data. Go fuck yourself. I am sick and tired of these people saying, I've been a Republican my whole life. I've never voted Democrat. So every post I have is anti-Trump and about how we need to make sure that we don't try to investigate any of the corruption. But trust me, I'm a Ron Paul guy. I'm a Ron Paul guy, so it's okay. Yeah, fuck you. No one believes you. Maybe you are a Ron Paul guy, but more than you like Ron Paul or the idea of sort of the civil libertarian principles that he espoused, you hate Trump, and so you're for the corruption, as every post that you fucking put on my channel shows. That's who you are. That's your ideology. That's it. Notice you didn't answer the question about, or the point I made about you've never bitched about access to data before, with the thousands upon thousands of government agents that would have had access. It's just now that it's Elon Musk. It's just about the conflicts of interest. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I agree. Big Balls is the hero we all needed. No one gives a fuck anymore, Taylor. You're a joke. You're a fucking liar. You're a disingenuous prick. Glad you're here. You help make the show more fun, but that's who you are. You're a punching bag. I'm not strawmanning shit. I'm correctly inferring exactly who you are based on the history of fucking posts that you've made on my channel for months now. It's the easiest thing in the world to go, well, actually, I've always politically aligned with you. Who's a politician? You like Ron Paul? Turns out I've always been a Ron Paul guy, always. And I just think that Trump and Musk are the most corrupt pieces of shit ever. And we need to immediately stop this audit of where all of our dollars are going in the federal government. Just because it's those two. If it was any other two people in the world, I would be totally for it. Trust me, I'm a Ron Paul guy. I'm cool. I'm hip. Hey, Ron Paul dudes. I'm one of you Ron Paul dudes, like, live free or die, man. Ron Paul. I'm like Ron Paul all the way. But we do need to stop the super mean auditing of the federal government because it's Trump and Musk, because they're bad. If it was any other two people in the world, I'd be okay with it. But, you know, until it was someone, then I would have a problem with it too. But trust me, man, fellow Ron Paul dudes, I'm a Ron Paul guy. There you go. There you go. Anti-Trump, that's true. Say no more, Taylor M. We got you. Do the Brianna Wu. Now that people ask me to do it, I don't know. Brianna Wu. The trans ideology's gone too far. Brianna Wu. Elon might be a sack of shit. So what? He's the first person to be doing this in any sort of meaningful way. And if it was Ron Paul appointed and all of a sudden every mainstream media outlet started to do a deep dive into the finances of Ron Paul and it turned out, oh wait, he was denied a grant for USAID at one point, Taylor M would be sitting here going, well, Ron Paul got denied a USAID grant one time. That's a conflict of interest. Can't be Ron Paul. Should have been Elon Musk. He seems like a cool guy. That's what he would be doing. We all know it. No, trust me, I wouldn't. I'm Ron Paul, man. Live free or die, right? Don't tread on me like Ron Paul, dude. Like Tea Party, right, man? Like, nah, I would never say that about Ron Paul. I know the mainstream media would lie about him, man. Like, I know that, Ron Paul. Yeah, trust me, bro. Hey, Colin, I say, hey, can you show me your social media posts that criticize sort of the theft of data and shit before 2024 election, before Doge? Can you show me that? And this is what he'd say. I can do Taylor M right now. I actually didn't have social media back then. I didn't have it. Sure, I was commentating on YouTube channels, but I didn't have social media back then. Oh, wait. Terrible speller. Here's Taylor M for you. Hey, fellow Ron Paul fans. What's up? On it fit. Live free or die, right? Am I right? Taylor M. Say, Bernie didn't take money from corporations. He took money from... Bernie's a great guy. Hey, Ron Paul fans. I like Bernie. He's a good guy. He never sold out. I'm a Ron Paul man. Ron Paul! You know who's like the closest to Ron Paul's Bernie. He never sold out. That's propaganda, man. That's propaganda. The Bernie took money from pharmaceutical. That's all propaganda, man. Not like Elon Musk. Oh boy, no audits because Elon Musk. Holy shit. Stop holding me to consistent principles. We have a powerful, corrupt person on our team now. Am I crying? Or are you crying? Is that? Oh, that's a crying face. I couldn't see it. Is that what I'm saying? Your consistent principles. Only the one guy doing the audit is bad. Bernie Sanders is good. He doesn't have a double standard. He never sold out. Just like Ron Paul. Ron Paul and Bernie Sanders. I'm once again asking you for more money for my third lake house. Is it even safe to walk down the streets as a Democrat with Republicans' violent rhetoric? I'm encouraging you to send me money to my campaign. Oh, what's that? One of my supporters just shot Steve Scalise? We cannot criticize my rhetoric that led to that, unlike when Republicans shoot someone and we can criticize their rhetoric. I'm now against Tulsi Gabbard, who was one of the most staunch anti-war Democrats who I supported formerly, but now I'm against. I also used to criticize the pharmaceutical industry, but now I'm totally on board with them and against RFK and people that would criticize them. I used to run on the promise of stopping unfettered immigration because it hurt domestic American workers, and now I'm for open borders. But just like Ron Paul, I never sold out because I'm principled, says Taylor M., fellow Ron Paul supporter. Ah! No, because I'm right because I'm right. Using the funny voice just makes it more fun and entertaining. Would you like to call in, Taylor M? How's that sound? You seem very confident in this. You're a man sticking to principles. Right? So let's go through it. Surely as a man with principles, you've had social media posts suggesting that you criticized formerly access to data that people had. Right? You gonna call in? Right, Taylor? I actually don't have access to a device to be able to call in. I'm one of the only people in the world that just doesn't have a cell phone that I'd be able to do that. I also didn't have social media. No, I'm shy. Well, you're shy? Hey, Taylor, it's been very real. You know what? I'm nothing if not a supporter of my fans. Thank you so much, Taylor M., for the enjoyment that I've gotten these past few weeks. But now for your interest, as someone who's so shy, I would say you're a cowardly sack of shit that knows what'll happen if you call in. But if you're shy and it's really in your best interest, see you later, Taylor. There you go. Bye-bye, Taylor. You're shy, so you don't want me referencing you anymore. Yeah, where's big balls when you need them? You would deal with that, right? Thank God we took care of that. He's very shy. He doesn't want to be referenced by me because he's shy. So we won't talk about him anymore because he's so shy. He's shy. What explains Bernie's selling out to the pharmaceutical industry? These onesies. Do you support these onesies? Shark bite. What explains that? One second. Mind show, what would I do? Is Courtney yelling at me? I'm sorry, Courtney. I'm once again asking you to forgive me. I usually do a call-in show once a week, but I've been working a little more. We'll do one next week. Did I miss any post? How many work? Okay, Shark Bite. How many people work in the pharmaceutical industry? So Bernie received close to $2 million from the pharmaceutical industry. The argument is, trust us, that's where all just small donations from the workers. One, how many people work in the pharmaceutical industry in this country? Let's test this theory. I can figure out. I know the number. How many donated? You know the number donated. You can figure out how many individuals donated. You tell me. You're the one who knows this. You tell me. I know the amount that he got. You tell me how many. Yes, I think that $2 million might explain why a person would have a position that seems to be antithetical to their previous position with a particular industry. By the way, that's just 1 year. You seem to know this. What was the cap on the donation that an individual could donate to Bernie Sanders? Yeah, that's what I was getting to, enemy and enemy. 350,000, 400,000. I do understand there's a difference between one person donating and 1,000. So Bernie's claiming he didn't take money from PACs, lobbyists, or executives. So let's say there is a difference between 1 and 1,000. Let's say that it was 1,000 high-ranking people in the pharmaceutical industry, but they weren't executives. So that's cool then, right? Oh, okay. Then he didn't get money from Big Pharma. Just people that get wealthy working for Big Pharma that donated to him. But that's okay, right? Right? Why did it seem like people from pharmaceutical companies were so interested in donating to Bernie? Of course it's easy for executives to funnel money. Now, see the deflection? Your party's got Elon Musk and you're worried about Bernie? No, I bring up Bernie because it was a deflection that was brought up by a previous person I was debating that you jumped in with. That said principled people are people like Bernie. They wouldn't have conflicts of interest. Now, if we're going to talk about his conflict of interest, and I'm making the assertion, can you show me when you've talked about data before? But then even, I can't show that. Can't show that. But I'm a Ron Paul guy, and I'm a Bernie guy. They don't sell out. They wouldn't have conflict of interest. I say bullshit. If it came to serious auditing of any of this, you'd find some sort of conflict of interest. Now, so we have no problem talking about money going to Bernie Sanders, millions of dollars, but that's not a conflict of interest, that it came from the pharmaceutical industry, because it didn't come from the CEO. It didn't come from a PAC. It just came from employees of the pharmaceutical industry. That's why it matters. I don't give a fuck. Bernie could grift like he's been grifting. I am a socialist who thinks that everyone is $1 more than me must be punished. They are unethical. Remember in like the 70s or the early 80s when Bernie said senators that are millionaires are immoral? And then once he became a millionaire, he changed the word millionaire to billionaire. You see, everyone who has $1 more than Bernie is an evil piece of shit. But Bernie needs his third lake house. There you go. You're so dishonest. $400 billion on your side, $2 million on the side of Bernie, who isn't even a Democrat. Yeah, Bernie is way worse. Who the fuck said Bernie was worse when it came to total amount of money that he has? Who said that? Who said that? If you want to just talk about straight up billionaires, the Democrats have been the party of billionaires for years. It's only since 2024 that a few prominent wealthy people in the tech sector, like Elon Musk, were forced into supporting Republicans because the Democrats are so batshit fucking crazy. But when it comes to billionaires, more of them still endorse Democrats than Trump. What does that have anything to do with what we're talking about here? The streamer is wrong, and this dude is right. What am I wrong about? Habibi Lenin? What am I wrong about? Am I wrong that he got nearly $2 million in campaign contributions from pharma companies? Am I wrong that just because that didn't come from PACs or something, that's still not money from pharma companies? What am I wrong about here? George Soros is fine. Alex Soros is fine. Zuckerbucks were fine. Bill Gates is fine. That's all good. But now that it's Elon Musk, it's a big problem. I used to say this all the time. Remember when Democrats used to scream about Citizens United? They didn't give a shit about it then once the Democrats... Remember, I got laughed at in debate after debate. I was like, the data doesn't lie. They're both were holding the capitalist interest regardless is the problem. What does that have to do? You said that I was wrong and that person was right. Where did I ever say they're not both beholden to capitalist interests? Where did I ever say that? You're saying I was wrong. Can you timestamp that? When I said anything regarding capitalist interests? Can you show me where I said that? You said I was wrong, and you say what I was wrong about is they're both a problem. They're both beholden to capitalist interests. My bad then, King. I'm no monarch. You could just call me Sir and move on. King's not needed. Bernie isn't a Democrat. No, it's the same as, actually, there is no left wing in the United States. Bernie's not a Democrat. Yeah, fuck you. These people didn't care. Citizens United, they didn't give a fuck. They didn't care for years. You don't have to apologize. I'm just fucking with you. There were more billionaires at Trump's inauguration than ticks on a bear's ass, and you claim to be a populist. Yep. Next. Can you show me your post criticizing billionaires when they overwhelmingly supported the Democratic Party from 2016 to 2024? Still, by the way, most of them support the Democratic Party. Can you show me that? Can you show me those posts? Oh, you didn't give a fuck about that? Right? Didn't give a fuck. Where was Bernie, by the way? Was he demanding the DNC send back the money billionaires were sending them? Just curious. No? Pretty quiet on that? Billionaires in Hollywood. Oh my God, the Democrats were practically vibrating with excitement when billionaire Taylor Swift might endorse them, right? No, it's not true. Billionaires always supported Republicans. Bullshit. In the 2016 election, more billionaires donated to Hillary Clinton than to Donald Trump. Specifically, 17 people in Bloomberg's Billionaire Index collectively donated over $21 million to Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump, on the other hand, relied more on his own funds and small donations, only 15% of his funds coming from large donors. Whoops. Whoops-a-daisy. Guy with the problem with billionaires didn't know. that they overwhelmingly supported the Democrats. Whoopsie daisy. So confident. But that was just 2016. In the 2020 election, more billionaires donated to Joe Biden's campaign compared to Trump's. According to Forbes, 25% of Americans' billionaires donated to Biden, while approximately 14% donated to Trump. Additionally, Biden had a greater number of billionaires or their spouses donate directly to his campaign, who only had 101 billionaire donors despite fundraising for his reelection since 2017. Whoops. Whoopsie daisy. You were saying, Shark? Billionaires want less taxes, less regulation. What party would that be? Huh, that's odd. So they were the billionaires donating against that were altruistic, right, Shark? Right? For example, Mark Cuban, he's donating against his own interest. Do I count PACs because individual donations are capped? Yes, billionaires overwhelmingly donated more to the Democrats in the 2016-2020 election. You're wrong, admit it. Say, I was wrong. Hillary outraised Trump 2-1 in the 2016 election, and Trump got far more donations from small donors than Hillary. The big money was on the side of Hillary. Doesn't mean there wasn't big money that was donating to Trump as well. Of course. A lot of people play both sides, and there's obviously going to be people on each side of an issue. Now, go fuck yourself. Show your ass. How about that, bud? Look it up yourself, fuck knob. Show your source. Forbes. 3 years ago, Biden spoke on stage at a think tank opining the wealth in America. I love Bernie, but I'm not Bernie. I think the 500 billionaires is the reason we're in trouble. The folks that are top aren't bad guys. I've found no distinction. And based on who they're supporting in the 2020 election, billionaires don't think Joe Biden is such a bad guy either. About 25% of America's billionaires donated his election efforts, either directly or through a spouse, according to analysis of records by the Federal Election Committee. By contrast, Donald Trump received money from only 14%. 230 Biden backers included founders of companies like Patagonia, DoorDash, Netflix, Democratic megadonors, Soros, and Lawfer, as well as billionaire members of some of the country's richest families like the Waltons, the Pritzkers, and the Louders. Broadly, they tended to hail from the coast. More than one-third live in California. Another 27% are based in New York. It makes sense, then, that about a quarter of them got rich in tech and a third made their fortunes in finance. On average, the billionaires gave about $170,000 to the Biden campaign and its joint fundraising committees, which split their receipts with the Democratic Party. Forbes not a good source. Federal Election Commission data not a good source. 25%. Oh, that proves everything. Yes, a considerable amount more of billionaires donated to the Democrats than the Republicans. And you claim the opposite. You claim that billionaires wouldn't donate to Democrat because they want slower taxes, so they would vote for Republican. You're wrong. You have a problem with Elon Musk. You did not have a problem with Pritzker or Walton or Soros, or Gates. You didn't have a problem. Neither did Bernie. Fake outrage. Just like you didn't have a problem with the fucking lawfare against Trump, but now you have a problem now. Now you're trying to change. Oh, but only 25%. So? How many, what was it, like $300 million in Zuckerbucks that went out to Democrat areas to drive up the vote? And now, after all proven, after Mr. Sharkbite there proven to be a bullshitter, a liar, or an uninformed sack of shit, he defaults to, but I saw a lot of billionaires at the inauguration. Well done. Well done. Did Biden make a special department for Soros? No, Trump's being transparent and it's out in the open what Elon's doing. With Biden, it was more behind the scenes, like how his son was getting money from corrupt oligarchs in Ukraine that Joe Biden himself was saying had connections to Russia. And then Joe Biden was forcing the firing of the prosecutor that was looking into that so that a new prosecutor could come in and immediately drop those charges against Biden's son's company. It wasn't as official. It was more behind the scenes shit. Cool. My problem is the billionaires are more transparent. Yeah, I did win, Sharkbite. You said that the billionaires, Democrats were never the party of billionaires. When I said that no one gave a shit in the past 8 years when billionaires were overwhelmingly supporting the Democratic Party more than the Republican Party. You said that never happened. I proved definitively that was true. And you're like, yeah, but it was only 25% of them. Fuck off. Okay? And your big bugaboo is, but I saw a lot of billionaires at Trump's inauguration. Into Q-tips, all these tech companies shouldn't have any influence on government. Government shouldn't have influence on them either. So, for example, if you watch Mike Benz the other day on Joe Rogan, he talks about USAID and other U.S. government money. The way it works is this. They can't censor free speech in this country, but what they could do is give money to NGOs with the expressed intent of forcing European countries to push for censorship efforts there. Those censorship efforts will be targeted against U.S. tech companies. And so a company like X now faces fines in Europe because the United States government and your tax dollars funded NGOs that pushed for governments in Europe to punish companies like X for allowing free speech. This will mean that the US-based company X will now face massive fines in the EU or have to censor people, including in the US, to make sure that they comply with the EU's rules. Thereby, the United States is, through non-governmental organizations, funding the censorship of its own citizens and its own company. Yes, in a perfect world, that doesn't occur. Simultaneously, in a perfect world, there's no lobbying or involvement from tech companies to our government. That's not possible. There will never be a perfect world. Forms of lobbying will always exist. That's why I universally prefer smaller government. The less power the government has to regulate and pick winners and losers, the less important lobbying becomes. Once you give the government the ability to fund foreign governments and NGOs in foreign countries to censor certain American companies, then yes, you make it more likely that those American companies get involved in the lobbying game to make sure they're not the targets of that and their opponents are. Mr. B, thanks for the $5 super chat. Talk about moving the goalposts. Billionaires support Trump. No, 25% funded Biden and not Trump. Well, 25% is not 100%, so checkmate, Rob. Exactly. That's exactly what happened there. Thank you, Mr. B. John Cena knows. He's here. You can see him. Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman used to talk about this all the time. Why do we assume the billionaire that got there in the private sector is corrupt, but the government official that's taking the billionaire's money isn't corrupt? The bureaucrat working at USAID, they're not corrupt. And then when we start to see evidence of the corruption coming up, the same people that didn't have a problem when those billionaires were overwhelmingly on their side are like, well, we have a problem now because the guy that's spearheading it's a billionaire. Enemy gets it. I'm not saying it. How many videos have I done criticizing Elon Musk? How many times have I criticized Donald Trump? Don't get it twisted. I don't think that they're some amongst the most morally virtuous people that have ever existed. They probably see a lot of self-aggrandization and benefit in doing what they're doing. But when we have the largest bureaucracy in the history of the world that is so corrupt, wasteful, and incompetent, and the people that had no problem with that fucking just Roll it along every year, every year, every year. They didn't have a problem with most of the big money being on their side. Didn't have a problem with Hillary outspending Trump 2-1. Almost every news corporation and shit, overwhelmingly for Hillary. Didn't have a problem with it, with all that big money going to Hillary. Same with Joe Biden. Now all of a sudden they have a problem. Now we're supposed to say, oh shit. Again, it's the same argument with lawfare. Every single time. This, if I could sum it up, take lawfare, take billionaires being involved, take social media censorship, all of it. If I could sum it up, it'd be this. If I can find this, I need to bookmark this. I'll find the perfect video for you here. Oh, just misspelled that. Remember when Elon, back in 2022, of April of 2022, was considering buying X? Remember that? And MSNBC has a host named Ari Melbourne. He had some thoughts on this.
And as we discussed in one of our special reports just last week, if you own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election.
No! No! Oh, no! No, can you imagine? That'd be terrible. What if Musk bans like the Democratic candidate? Can you imagine if Twitter, one of the most important social media platforms for discussing culture in the news, if the owner of it banned one of the candidates for president? Can you imagine that? That'd be unforgivable. What if they just turned down the reach of certain political parties? That'd be despicable. In a nutshell, take every issue. Lawfare. What if Trump did to us what we did to him? That'd be despicable. Billionaires. What if billionaires all of a sudden start working with Trump like they worked with us in our administrations? What if Musk sends Musk bucks to the election in 2028 or 2026? And he's sending money to drive out the vote and shit in predominantly red areas in swing states. What if he did that? That would interfere in our systems. No, you don't say. Fuck you, people. Fuck you. All of your fucking whining, it makes it. I'm like the fucking Grinch after, what's their name? Susie talks to him. My heart grows 3 sizes too big. Every time I hear you fuckers whine about this shit, I'm like, it is manna to my soul. It's not that simple. Into Q-tips. American companies don't want to lose access to 500 million people in the European market. So to take a company like Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, Google, any of those companies, if you said, okay, you have to make sure that your products don't have a reach in Europe, you've basically sabotaged them economically against every one of their competitors. I could go through the entire Mike Benz interview with Joe Rogan. I think it's that good. Mike Benz is weird. He's like this autistic dude, in a good way. he gets lost in I get lost in the weeds. Mike Benz is even worse than me. But man, if you could dissect what he's saying, it's dark. I thought this was the most important section. Mike Benz, he talks considerably about how the entertainment industry, USA, basically, let me sum up. It's quickly as possible, in the most layman way possible, what Mike Benz is trying to say on this particular subject. So, like, it turns out the CIA used to do a bunch of interfering with countries around the world. First, we would just go in and take shit over militaristically. But then the UN passed a charter. It was like, well, you really can't do that. You can't expand your influence through military conquest. Like, the rest of the world frowns upon that. So then what's the next best thing? Well, you expand your influence through other means. Soft power, deception, etc. And what we realized was the best way to do that is to get the governments in their power. So you want governments that endorse the U.S. establishment, CIA, intel agency, military, etc. beliefs. And you could argue, Mike Benz says, you could argue that's a good thing. Originally what happened was that benefited United States citizens. So if the CIA went into a country that had oil reserves and funded to make sure that a particular candidate won that would give access to a U.S.-owned company like ExxonMobil, ExxonMobil then makes more money, creates more jobs in the United States, which bumps up your 401k. Problem is, companies like ExxonMobil started outsourcing those jobs to other countries. But the U.S. State Department, intel agencies, etc. are still doing that shit to benefit them. It just no longer benefits the citizens of this country. So he calls it sort of this department of dirty tricks, and it would do shit like it would go into a country and it would go after their culture. It would train entertainers. For example, there's a situation in Cuba where they would go into Cuba and they did all of this analysis where they're like, well, we see that there's racial unrest with Afro-Cubans, and the issues that affect them are poverty and drugs, and they like rap culture, so we'll finance a bunch of rappers there. They actually financed Cuba's own version of Twitter there. And he talks about it in his interview with Joe Rogan. The point of this version of Twitter was at first it was billed as like, it's the cool hip place for culture. You want to learn about the newest concert coming to your town? Bam! Go to Cuban Twitter. I forget what the name of it is. It means hummingbird, though, in the Cuban language. Weather alerts. You want the up-to-date place on when the next hurricane's going to get? Bam, Cuban Twitter. But the stated intention was, once it got so many viewers, suddenly they would put bots in that pushed the pro-U.S. intel agency's message to these people of Cuba. Zunzanillo, that's it. You're right, Pistol Pete, you got it. But the part this is concerning, all this shit that they're doing with all of these cultural figures around the world and all these tech things. But one of the things that they specialize doing is owning the judiciary. So they'll go into a place and they'll basically fucking prop up prosecutors, prop up politicians that will affect the political and judicial landscape so that they could then, when they win, prosecute their opponents. Because the reason you do that is there's less money and intensiveness that goes into once you jail and get rid of all of the populist opponents in a country. So, for example, if there's a populist party in Poland and every 4 years they're winning the election, then they lose, then they're winning, then they lose, USAID has to continue to pump money in there. But if you lock up the opposition, then you don't have to. Doesn't cost as much. And so he talks about the nation of Poland here, and I think this part, it's just surreal. And the whole 3.5 hour podcast is worth listening to, but I wanted to I didn't want to do that tonight, so we're going to listen to this section.
The month he takes office, this is December 2023, National Endowment for Democracy, the CIA publishes this think piece, How to Dismantle in a Liberal Democracy. And again, I think formally, what's published here is supposed to, not technically, it's published in the NED publication. It doesn't mean it's NED foreign policy, but this is what they're publishing and you're paying for. So they're saying, listen, it's not an...
NED is the National Endowment for Democracy, which your tax dollars go to. Now, what we're told is this is to promote democracy around the world. But again, remember, when they say democracy, they don't mean, oh, the will of every person in those countries. They mean the will of the institutions in the establishment of the United States. So your tax dollars are going to create documents and plans to sabotage foreign countries who have votes that our institutions don't like.
Autocracy in Poland. Unfortunately, we can't call it a dictator like Putin or the CCP. It's democracy because the people voted for it and they won fair and square, but it's illiberal democracy because the democratic institutions, don't you know, are not having their way. But here's what it says. Poland may be setting on its first steps in, quote, stamping out populism and holding those responsible for the worst violations of rule of law. That means the criminal justice system. Now get to the next one. Next slide. Poland's new government must, therefore, do more than just return to liberal democracy. It must address transitional justice, the same thing, which is all over every U.S. aid operation. It has to arrest the people from the government we just transitioned from. Prime Minister Tusk and his coalition must, again, not should, not maybe should consider, maybe if there's something there, must stabilize the political system, ensure the reign against losing in the next election, to ensure that populism does not return in the next election.
Now, brief pause. Deadeye says, that's how the world works. If we don't influence countries for our benefit, the Chinese and Russians will be happy to do it. Who's our? Deadeye, you said if we don't do it for our benefit. When you say our, who do you mean? Can you explain that? If we, who's we, and who's our? Can you explain that? Because you make an interesting point. We should do this because it's to our benefit. Is that what's going on? Is the am I included in who the you, me? Really? I'm included in what the National Endowment of Democracy is doing? What is it that they're doing again? If you go back to the slide, if you can see here, and what Mike Benz just said. Oops, sorry. Oh, for crying out loud. I swear, sometimes. Poland's new government must, therefore, do more than just return to liberal democracy. It must address transitional justice. Prime Minister Tusk and his coalition government must also stabilize the political system to ensure that populism does not return in the next election. Populism. So the National Endowment for Democracy must help lock up politicians in other countries for my benefit. And who are they going after? Populists that agree with me. Now, can any of you think of a country where there was a so-called populist president, then he loses, or populist leader, then he or she lose, and then lawfare is gone after them because we must use lawfare to stop them from running again? Can anyone think of a country like that? Anyone? That's what we're talking about in Poland. You had populists. That was considered illiberal democracy. So our intel agencies, USAID, CIA, National Endowment for Democracy, they're like, we can't have populism, so we must lock up the populist, former leader of that country. Can you think of a country where that occurred? Where could that have happened? Shit. It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's for our benefit. It's for my benefit, and it's for you all's benefit, right? Oh, that's right, Donald Trump. That happened in America. Whoops-a-daisy. Whoops. You see, this is Mike Benz's entire argument. He's like, I'm not taking a stance on whether or not our intel agencies and establishment should be fucking with the rest of the world for our benefit. I'm making 2 points. One, it doesn't really benefit the American people much anymore. And second, those same dirty tricks that we've employed, not we, that these agencies have deployed throughout the world are now being used back home against its own citizens. That's the problem. So I'm sorry, Deadeye. I don't buy it. It's for me and you and all of us as benefit. Trust us, Rob. The reason that the government had to push for your censorship on social media was for your benefit. The reason they had to push to lock up Trump was for Trump's benefit. It was all for the benefit of the American people. All of us. Fuck that. Bullshit. Let's keep going.
Wow. Donald Trump is a populist president. Bolsonaro is a populist president. Marine Le Pen is populist in France. Matteo Salvini is populist in Italy. The Vox Party is populist. This is State Department and USAID policy everywhere. And this is a direct order that in order to make sure you win the next election, and we don't need to keep funding you or projecting lending our soft power apparatus to prop you up, arrest these people so they can't run against you again. Go to the next one. It's not just telling them.
You see? Now the truth comes out. Well, Deadeye says, but Trump is a criminal. He's been scamming people for 30 years. Trump University. He doesn't deserve any benefit of the doubt. There you go. That's the truth. Trying to sound reasonable. Well, the reason that it's okay for the U.S. State Department, USAID, all these intel agencies, etc., to interfere with elections around the world is it's for our benefit, the American people. Yeah, but they're doing it back home. Good. Trump sucks. Good. I'm glad it happened. That's the truth. Just be honest, dude. You're okay with the lawfare because you hate Trump and thinks he deserves it. Just say it. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with the intel agencies doing the same shit to our citizens and to our president as they do to presidents around the world because I don't like Trump. Does everyone see? At least give Deadeye's credit for being honest. That's the truth. That's how they feel. That's why 1/3 of Democrats polled were like, yeah, I wish Trump would have been killed by that assassin. Again, they feel morally superior, so they don't give a fuck. Why are so many people watching me? Oh my goodness. According to this, I got 800 people watching on X. Could that be true? Jesus. Why are you turning into this fat bastard? I'm no Mike Benz. I do happen to be one of the best right-wing debaters out there, but... Let's finish with this Mike Benz clip. But do you see? How long did it take to get Deadeye to admit, well, I hate Trump. I'm glad they're using lawfare against him.
That you must do it if you want to get U.S. aid support, like the Ukraine, Ukraine Burisma loan type thing. But here's what it says. The new government should therefore focus attention on whether and how suspected criminals can be punished. At present, there are a number of cases that should be tried immediately. The chutzpah. The frigging chutzpah. This is a foreign, as far as the Polish people are concerned, this is a foreign government. It's foreign CIA front apparatus imploring their own elected government about which citizens there that they need to arrest those citizens and even giving them the list of targets. Imagine if the Russian Ministry of Affairs sent Donald Trump, said not only do you have to, arrest the remnants of the Kamala Harris-Joe Biden campaign, but we're giving you the list of target names. Here's who Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, must file criminal indictments against. This is an international incident. And again, technically, I believe what's published here is not, they're not supposed to be, does not represent, it's like retweets are not endorsements, but you're paying for this organization, you're paying for this journal, and this is what they're publishing as a command to a foreign country. This was a Trump ally, by the way, the PIS party, which is another part of this. Ned is doing a boomerang attack. By preventing PIS's popularity in Poland, they do a boomerang attack against the foreign policy international coalition that Trump has. So here are the cases. These include the 2015 appointment of judges. Arresting people for appointing judges. Here's another one. To arrange a supposedly unconstitutional presidential election by mail-in voting during the pandemic. WTF? We hate mail. It was practically a crime to not support mail-in voting with the National Endowment for Democracy here, but over there, they're saying it's a crime to have done it. And
do you get that? Do you get what he just said? Now that blew my mind. People that appointed judges they don't like, lock them up. People that pushed for mail-in voting in Poland during COVID because it was clear that was a scam to help influence the election. So our intel agencies overseas are saying you should be locked up if you push for mail-in voting. But back home they're saying, of course we needed mass changes of mail-in voting. And there's no reason that that would be able to affect the election in a negative way. Of course, Imaginarium. Did you add an extra S? Do you understand that? And this happens all the time, by the way. Happened in Romania. It's just like, no, sorry, we just don't trust the results of that election. Then we'll morally grandstand. Oh, Russia interferes in countries' elections. By the way, you don't think this sort of shit was going on in 2014 in Ukraine? I don't have the exact receipts that says that the Maidan revolution was sponsored by the United States. Has all the hallmarks of a traditional color revolution. And we know what happened afterwards. One of the first things that the Obama State Department did was create what was called the NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. Basically, their FBI. The United States is giving all this money. We'll fund it, but you got to go after the people we say. So there was this network called the Anti-Corruption Action Center in Ukraine. And the NABU decided, and prosecutors decided, we're going to go after the Anti-Corruption Action Center because they thought there were financial crimes that were occurring in Ukraine about this. One of the people at the State Department, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, he testified in the impeachment of Donald Trump that reporting that suggested that they gave a list to the NABU and other places, a do not prosecute list, that was a total joke. That never occurred. Only we have the receipts that they did. Because it turned out the Anti-Corruption Action Bureau was not only getting money from the United States, but was also getting money from George Soros. So when local prosecutors said, we're going to prosecute this group, the United States stepped in and said, no, you're not. Let me see if I can find the receipts on this. I think I have this bookmarked. See if I can find this. George Kent. So George Kent testified. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh! I hate script. Ugh. I gotta go through some hoops to try to find this article because it wants me to get an account. Let's see if we... Taking long enough. Is that Danny Carey behind me? That's the dude from The Big Lebowski. I don't think it's going to work. Well, just so you see what I'm looking at. You see, it's... I don't want to buy there. Let's see if I can find this anywhere else. It's not working. Yeah, it's not going to work. See if I can find this real quick. It's important. Everything just goes back to that same link. Well, here's a little section of it that I needed to screenshot it. This is George Kent that's writing this. We are completely satisfied that the assistance in question has not only been used for the purposes and, as stated above, do not see any grounds from our perspective as the donor who provided the assistance for investigation of their use. Given the above, we reject allegations that Mr. Sacrivadiles or anyone with the Prosecutor General's office with whom we work could have misused these funds since they were never under their control. The investigation into the Anti-Corruption Action Center, based on the assistance they have received from us, is similarly misplaced. And so George Kent testified, we never told them who to investigate and who not. But here in this letter, George Kent is personally writing to the Prosecutor General's office of the Ukraine saying, hey, we think this guy, Sacrivadiles, that's like one of the people that was pro-Biden in Ukraine, that stuck up for Biden under the Burisma thing, and the Anti-Corruption Action Center, they never mishandled money. So we strongly recommend that you don't charge them. Now, George Kent testified under oath that they never had a do not prosecute list. Bullshit. Right there in black and white. They controlled the prosecutors in Ukraine. When the prosecutors, that was the NABU, when the Prosecutor General's office wasn't listening to them and they're like, nah, we're going to look into Burisma. What did Joe Biden say? Fuck you then. You're not getting $1 billion from USAID unless you fire that prosecutor. So they fired that prosecutor. All the Biden supporters go, that's great. It's because that dude was corrupt. Then they gave them the money. Then the new guy came in, and one of the first things he does is bury the investigation into the corrupt company Burisma, which Joe Biden's son happens to be on the board of directors for. Who even activists in Ukraine were like, yeah, these fucking dudes were corrupt. The new guy was corrupt. That's what they do. That's what they're doing back home. That's what the lawfare against Trump is. That's what it is. It's the same blueprint that they use in Poland, that they used in Brazil, that they used in Ukraine, that they've been using since the 50s. Same fucking blueprint. Get the entertainment industry on board, using money and influence. Get the prosecutors on board. Get the judges on board. Lock up your political opponents. Censor speech that you don't like. The same fucking playbook that our institutions are using all around the world. The exact same thing happening back home. That's what's happening. That's why they're freaked out about uncovering all of these payments from places like USAID. That's why. Because not only is it going to show how corrupt these institutions have been to Trump allies, and not just Trump allies, but populist, right-wing governments all around the world, they don't want that. They want a trans agenda because it helps destabilize and demoralize. They don't want pro-Christian right-wing governments. They don't like Marine Le Pen in France. They don't like the right-wing party in Italy. They don't like the populist party in Poland. They don't like it in Brazil. So they're constantly financing efforts to meddle in other countries' elections. Then when it blows up, like in Ukraine, they're like, we'd never do that. That's outrageous. We'd never do that. When Trump's like, well, we need to investigate this in Ukraine, they're like, impeach him. You can't do that. And they're doing this shit back home, too. You're damn right I'm listening to Mike Benz. And so now that they're looking for the receipts, they're like, no, you can't do that. You can't. And they're freaking out. I'll end on this, talking about a specific example. Once you see what they're doing, let's see how that applies and how similar action could take place in the United States. You see, one of the things they do is they say, well, it's not the U.S. government censoring. It's NGOs. They're private. They're non-governmental organizations that exist through your tax dollars. So you might be against trans agendas for children, but your tax dollars goes to USAID that then pays organizations that push that. But the government says that's not us doing it. That's a non-governmental organization doing it. Can someone in the audience tell me what was the precipitating incident that led to Crossfire Hurricane, the 2016 investigation into Trump-Russia collusion? What is the official story? What was the incident that led to it? Who was the central character that was the start of the investigation? Does anyone remember? Does anyone remember? Who were they investigating? Who was the person? What was the precipitating incident? Was it Flynn? Was it Trump? That's not what they claim. Wasn't Hillary? Well, sort of had to do with Hillary funding. But there was a person. Remember, there was a bunch of people being investigated. I have looked somewhat into the prosecution of Smirnov. It was the story of... Wasn't Rudy? Wasn't Carter Page? Who was it? It was a guy who got like 1 day jail time. Does anyone remember his name? His name was... He was a young guy that worked for Trump, right? Wasn't Carter Page, though. Because originally we thought it was the dossier, which led to the FISA warrants under Carter Page. And the DNC and Hillary team lied to us for over a year and said, we didn't fund it. And then it turned out they did. And it turned out there was all sorts of problems. So then the story changed. That wasn't the start of it. That's right. Pandemic Slayer nails it. George Papadopoulos. For Varel, thanks so much for $20. Says, this is the first ever super chat I've ever done. It's the most articulate of righties, including Andrew Wilson. Loves your content, bro. Take my blood, sweat, and tears. Thank you. I will take your money. Thanks. That means a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Sometimes I can be a bit of a prick, but... hopefully all for a good cause. Thank you. It was George Papadopoulos. Now, what was the story of George Papadopoulos? Let's go through it again real quick. George Papadopoulos was this low-level guy in Trump's team. Now, the problem is because Trump was running a populist campaign that was drain the swamp, it was hard to fill out hundreds upon hundreds of positions in his campaign with people that weren't really swamp creatures, that weren't really involved already in D.C. So you end up with people that are sort of nobodies, like George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, etc. These are low-level people. Now, Papadopoulos ends up meeting with this Maltese professor by the name of Joseph Mifsud in Europe. And Joseph Mifsud has this really attractive woman with him by the name... Wait, I'm getting my name screwed up. At one point, there was a woman that was introduced named Azra Turk, who was a honeypot, who was an FBI agent or asset or something. It was this very attractive woman. Forget about Azra, though, because I might be mixing up my stories with some other people. So let's just focus on Joseph Mifsud. Now, Joseph Mifsud, he taught at all of these universities that had connections to UK intelligence and to Italian intelligence, right? And so everyone all in his life said, we always suspected he was involved in UK or Italian intelligence. But the FBI's version of events is really he was a Russian spy, right? So this Professor Mifsud starts talking to Papadopoulos and becomes friends with him and goes, hey, I know a Russian that claims to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. What do you think? Papadopoulos is like, okay. So he meets this Russian, and this Russian says, I have emails of Hillary Clinton engaged in bad behavior. Okay? Weeks later, Papadopoulos is in Australia at a bar, drunk, and he runs into this guy, Alexander Downer. Alexander Downer is in Parliament in Australia, I believe. He's a big Clinton Foundation person. In fact, at one point, he was accused of unethically directing Australian tax dollars to the Clinton Foundation. So he's a big Clinton guy. Papadopoulos drunkenly says to Alexander Downer, I talked to this Russian guy, and he said that they got emails about Hillary that are bad. Then, supposedly, the DNC and Hillary servers get hacked. That's it. That's why Crossfire Hurricane opened. Because a low-level Trump staffer drunkenly said, a Russian told me they have emails about Hillary. And you might say, yeah, but then we found out that Russia hacked. We didn't find out Russia hacked. That's bullshit. And if we ever got to the truth of it, I'm 85% certain that it would turn out that it wasn't Russia that hacked the DNC or Hillary server. Remember, the FBI asked the DNC if they could have the server, and the DNC said, no, instead you could have a copy that our company CrowdStrike made. They say it was Russia, and the FBI said, okay, good enough for us. You try that. If the FBI wants one of your servers, you say, nah, thanks, dog. Instead, I'll hire my own place, and they'll send you a copy. You go ahead and see how that works for you. But that's how it worked for the DNC. That's how it worked for them. But the problem is, that doesn't prove anything, even if this hack was from Russia, that Trump's team had prior knowledge. Because everyone in the country knew that Hillary had this server in her bathroom, and everyone was like, yeah, it probably got hacked by all of our enemies. Which there's good evidence that, like, China hacked it. So everyone was, if you were going to make up a story to a Trump team member that you had dirt on Hillary, what you would say is, we got shit from her server. That's what I would say. Because everybody knew she had an unprotected server in her fucking bathroom. Nonetheless, that was the precipitating incident. So who is the character? Who is the biggest villain in this story? Who is the dastardly Russian most responsible? Who got the wheels in motion to start the dirty Russia collusion? Who was it? Who were the characters I said in that story? Wasn't Papadopoulos. Wasn't Alexander Downer. Who was it? It was the Maltese professor, Joseph Mifsud. That's who it was. Who all of his friends thought had connections to Western intelligence. But nope, it turns out he duped them all. He was a Russian spy altogether. Now, the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud. They had him. And they said Mifsud lied to them multiple times. Now remember, Papadopoulos, he got arrested. What did he get arrested for? Does anyone remember? I'll give you a clue. It's basically the same thing that Mike Flynn got arrested for. And Roger Stone got arrested for. What was it? Was it colluding with Russia? What did they get arrested for? Anyone remember? they got arrested for? Lying to the FBI. That's right. That's why they got arrested. So Mifsud, let's compare Mifsud to Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn, decorated United States war veteran, who allegedly lied to the FBI, which is bullshit anyways, but lied to the FBI about whether or not he talked to his Russian counterpart before he came into office about sanctions. The lie that was so egregious that Mike Flynn had to have his life ruined over and be prosecuted even after the DOJ dropped prosecution. The lie was he was talking to his counterpart saying, hey dog, don't do anything really bad to America. When we get in there, we'll try to work things out. That's it. That was his big crime. And he allegedly lied to the FBI about that. Throw the book at him, prosecute him. And here's this Russian spy who infiltrated the Trump campaign, who's now lying to the FBI. Did the FBI charge the Russian spy like the decorated U.S. war veteran? No, they didn't. They didn't. Huh. Why not? Now, back before I had a kid,
James Comey.
I had time to watch this shit. I watched hours upon hours of the Mueller hearing. Let's hope this is a clip I'm looking for.
James Comey has publicly called Mifsud a Russian agent, yet your report does not refer to Mifsud as a Russian agent. Mifsud has extensive contacts with Western governments and the FBI. For example, there is a recent photo of him standing next to Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister of Great Britain. What we're trying to figure out here, Mr. Mueller, is if our NATO allies or Boris Johnson have been compromised. So we're trying to figure out, Comey says Mifsud is a Russian agent, you do not. So do you stand by what's in the report?
I'd stand by that which is in the report and not so necessarily with that which is not in the report.
That's one clip. Let's see if I can find the other.
The gentleman from Ohio.
Director of the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be
charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him. Names like Halper, Downer, Mifsud, Thompson, meeting in Rome, London, all kinds of places. The FBI even sent a lady posing as somebody else, went by the name Azra Turk, even dispatched her to London to spy on Mr. Papadopoulos. In one of these meetings, Mr. Papadopoulos is talking to a foreign diplomat, and he tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. That diplomat then contacts the FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, 2016, they open the investigation based on that piece of information. Diplomat tells Papadopoulos, Papadopoulos tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's a guy who told Papadopoulos, the mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times, and yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, we can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Mifsud, did he lie to you guys too?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Mifsud?
Can't get into that.
Is Mifsud Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into.
Now you tell me, what's your conclusion from watching that? Other than Bob Mueller has no fucking idea where he is, just like Joe Biden. Why? They had him dead to rights on lying to the FBI. Why not charge him? You charged a 3-star general. You charged everyone connected to Trump with lying to the FBI, but not Joseph Mifsud. Not the guy who was the spy who started it all, the Russian spy, who everyone thought was Western intelligence, but now it turns out secretly he was a Russian spy. Mueller's like, we can't discuss it. We can't even tell you if we interviewed him. Can't get into it, can't get into it, can't get into it. I'll tell you why. Because Joseph Mifsud was Western intelligence. Because the entire precursor for investigating Donald Trump was a Western intelligence asset from the get-go, and the FBI and all of the investigators into Trump fucking knew it. This guy says, hey, someone has dirt on Trump. Tells a low-level Trump guy that. Low-level Trump guy tells another guy connected to the Clintons, hey, I heard there's dirt on, or he says there's dirt on Hillary. He says, hey, I heard there's dirt on Hillary. That's it. The entire Trump-Russia investigation was set up by Western intelligence. And the way it was most likely set up wasn't through the FBI personally meeting with Joseph Mifsud. I'll bet it was through financing, through places like USAID, through NGOs. That's what it was. And once they started to look into it, they were like, oh, fuck, yeah. We're just going to leave that out, all the reports. We're not going to arrest Mifsud. Now, supposedly Mifsud's been just missing off the face of the earth for like the past 4 years. No one can find the dude. If it's true that Mifsud was Western intelligence, does everyone see how that's the biggest political scandal in the history of this country? Does everyone see that? That means our intel agencies worked, and our government tax dollars worked for Hillary Clinton to make up a lie and excuse to totally spy on and investigate Trump. And the entire accusation of foreign countries interfering in our elections was true, but it was done at the behest of the U.S. intelligence agencies. That's what's going on. That's the type of shit that they don't want people finding out. They don't want you finding out that a lot of the riots that were occurring like May 30th, 2020 were funded by organizations that your tax dollars went to. They don't want you finding that out. That the insurrection May 30th, 2020, when violent left-wingers attacked government buildings and tried to storm the White House, so much so that Trump had to be moved to a secure bunker, and then Joe Biden and many other prominent Democrats made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. They don't want you to find out that that was paid for by your fucking tax dollars. And then you wonder why almost none of them got arrested. But boy, oh boy, did they shit their pants when January 6th happened. That's what's going on. So when you hear people like Deadeye going, well, this is all for our own good. Fuck you. Also, Kaler, the both sides are rubbish is some of the biggest load of shit ever. If what I just told you is true, show me one thing Trump did that's remotely comparable. Hey, by the way, Ron Quay, thank you so much on Rumble. The Rumble chat now shows up. Thank you. Please follow me on Rumble. I'm Rob Noor on Rumble, just how my name's spelled. Ron, you're the first quote I saw from Rumble. I'm glad you're watching there, man. Rumble's a great platform because when YouTube eventually decides to ban me, that's where I'll be. So thank you, Ron. Prestigious honor there. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to have to get out here. Oh, it's Normal America on Rumble. Okay. There you go. I don't even know the name of my own show on Rumble. Jesus. Tomorrow, we're going to the monster truck rally with my son. So I'm so pumped. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I won't be streaming tomorrow or the following day. But Monday I should be streaming. So should be fun, man. I'm looking forward to the monster trucks. I think my son is too. The only concern is that it gets pretty loud. So we got some special earmuffs we're getting ready for him so it doesn't get too loud for him. And but I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'll let you know who won the big monster truck rally the next time you stream. So if you think my politics takes are bullshit, you can at least tune in for my monster truck review. It'll be awesome. Thank you, EOD. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you to everyone that donated. You're incredibly generous. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats, because that's something I do. It'll be... Blake for $4.99 says, I'm with you. No more world policing. I think I missed that one. Thank you so much, Blake. Totally agree. Ben folds 5 chairs for 5 months, says membership. 5 months already as well. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, man. Making sure I didn't miss anything. Joseph Romano, thank you for becoming a member. Green Soldier, thank you for $5. Says, funny that the first people to call for war, never the first to volunteer. Left's trying to argue for war and fraud. Wild times. Love the show. Thank you. John Beard, thank you so much for being a member. Says, Vegemite and government cheese. You will all love it. Oh, Vegemite. Vita for $2 says, does anyone know where Joseph Misfit is? Ask Durham. Yeah, no shit. And John Beard, Vegemite for all Americans. International Influence Fund. Thank you. I don't get paid by Russia or USAID like, most of the other streamers out there. Just kidding. So I really appreciate it. I do. Gravedigger for the win, says EOD. We'll see. So far, my son's favorite's called El Toro Loco because it looks like a bull and he likes it. So, all right. You guys are the best. I'll talk to you all soon. We'll see you Monday. I'll try to stream in the evening, but it may be a daytime stream. We'll just see how things roll. Thank you so much. And as always, have a good one.